literally as I was about, meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Yes, yes. Got it. I wonder if I can record from my end. Do you allow, or did you put allow recording? And then I don't have to go through a whole hoopla. I can just save it here instead of doing it after.
I have the ability to record on my end. I don't know.
Yeah. Let me see if it'll let me record on this computer. Permission needing from host. Send request. Okay.
Okay.
Post. Oh, yes.
Cool. There you go.
All right. At least I can record it, and then I can play it, put it on Patreon or something, Okay. Right. So, all right. So that's good. We did that.
Woohoo. Let's see. Make sure it's working. It's working. Yay.
All right. So let me go into your thingy. All right. Mute. Delete this. Yes, up Sassenach. Yay. Open it. Mute.
Hi, Ruth. Hi, Gail.
All right. Talk for a second, Chelsea. Let me make sure I can still
I'm going to vamp. I'm just talking
good.
and it's working.
Good,
okay,
good. All right. I had to mute the Facebook and then I had to go through all of the hoopla and stuff. Well, just to give you a 411 on what the heck happened.
Yeah, what did happen?
Right as I'm about to, like, literally, I sat there like a frenzied woman, trying to pull everything together on Tom's computer, and literally like 2 minutes to 1, my husband comes in and says, "I fixed your computer."
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm like, "You did?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, now I'm all set over here. I can't undo it now and switch back." So now I have both computers in front of me and I'm just using the one that was mine to be able to like have Zoom and Facebook up. And I have my notes on Tom's computer now that I just kind of hodgepodge together. And I said, "Oh my God." And then of course, when you told me about the Zoom, then I had to run up and get my camera and my mic.
We're all good though. It's all good.
A major CF is what it is. It's a major CF.
And then for those of you watching, once she got on, then I couldn't hear her because there was an issue with my settings. So then we spent 5 minutes trying to figure that out. It's been a mess, but we're here, damn it. And we're going to talk about season 7.
We conquered.
We're strong, independent women.
That's right. We are premium women. Perfect for stars. We're the stars primary women. Oh my goodness gracious.
Let's see.
Hello, everyone.
All right.
I see lots of bees in the house.
I'm trying to, it's gonna play back. Oh, I need to mute it. There it goes.
Yes, we are.
I'm telling you. This is gonna be great.
And Chelsea's on a hard out too, poor thing.
Okay. All right. So yes, we're on a hard out for 4:30 today because I have to be on call for work, which is
I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine.
I think we will be too, because we're only talking about the first 8 episodes today. For those of you that submitted questions for more than the first 8. Yeah, we're just talking about the first 8 today.
Yep.
Okay, let's
first 8.
Catherine, Angie. Hi, Angie.
Hey, Angie. There's my girl. Hey, Angie, my girl. My Seattle girl.
Sassenach Sevilla. I don't know what your actual name is, but hello. I'm glad you could make it.
What is it?
She has an account on Instagram. So she messages me sometimes, but she joined our Facebook group. So
Oh, good. Is it Sassenach Sevilla? Is that it? Yeah, she
Sevilla.
joined mine too. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sevilla. I'm
Yeah.
probably butchering it. I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. But yeah, that I see she's on my group too. So yeah, great.
All righty. Oh, let's see if I can get my outline pulled up here.
If I'm like doing this, because I'm not set up the way I normally am, so it's not that I'm trying to avoid eye contact. It's just that my head's going like this.
I got two screens and then my outline in the middle, so this ought to be interesting.
Yes, I look so professional over here with all of this equipment.
I swear I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry your boat trip went south, Catherine, but I'm glad you're here. Carmen. Well, hello, Carmen. Nice to meet you.
We're almost there, girlfriend.
We're almost there. It's closer for you than it is for me, but we are almost there. Angela is going to the premiere, for those of you that do not know. I think most of you probably know, but she's
and the Josh thing.
So. I got virtual tickets for the Josh thing.
Oh, did you? Good.
Yeah, but I'm going to be in the middle of Yellowstone National Park. So I don't know if I'm going to have Wi-Fi anywhere to pull over and watch it, but I'm going to try.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can.
Yeah, I told my mom we need to find like because they have coffee shops and like sandwich shops and stuff near the resorts. So hopefully we can plan accordingly.
Well, if you bought virtual tickets, they usually leave it available for you after. Yeah. Okay. Usually you have like a 24, at least a 24-hour window, sometimes a week, but usually a 24-hour window for sure.
Okay. That makes me feel better.
I didn't think they were doing virtual tickets. And so that's why I thought, oh, that would be good. I'll do like a show. I have a show planned for Sunday after both things. And I'm going to kind of just do a packaging of everything between the two that we learned from the panels and stuff. So I didn't realize everybody could get virtual tickets for that. So that's good. I heard they weren't doing virtual tickets or something.
They're not doing virtual tickets for the premiere and the panel for the premiere.
Really? Okay.
Right. But they did virtual for the 92Y thing with Josh and the cast.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, because I was like, well, maybe I'll get to watch like a virtual version of the premiere like I did last time. Yeah. They're like, COVID's over, y'all. We're back to hard tickets. So whatever. And if it had been any other time, I probably would have been like, yeah, I'll just fly in and do it. But I'm literally going to be across the country on vacation. So I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Why can't you plan around me? Jeez. Okay.
I know, really. Come on, stars. Get with the program.
Yeah. God, I'm clearly the most important person here.
It's all about me.
Okay. So, all right. We haven't done a live since the trailer came out. We've done separate things, but
yes,
it was a hell of a thing.
I love the trailer so much.
Yeah, I watched it again while I was waiting, and I'm just like, I just love this trailer so much.
I know, it was so good. All the feels. It is. It's so good. And I'll tell you what, Chelsea, I think people better just strap in, because I have a feeling this thing is going to go 100 miles an hour this season. Even though you think, oh, well, we got 16 episodes and, just like stretch out and, like, no, there's none of that crap, because they're shoving so much in those 16 episodes that they're just going to be like, little roadrunner running down the thing and Wile E. Coyote chasing them, I mean, it's going to be craziness. I think we need to like brace our brains how quickly it's going to probably move, you know what I mean? And how quickly they're going to hit the points. Because they said that everybody said, even Diana has made comments to that effect, that it's going to be like, she's like, it's going 100 miles an hour. Like things are just flying by, and she said that to me. So I know if she's saying that specifically about this season, when we've already been doing that all, you know what I mean? It must be really significantly ramped up, so
Yeah, I feel like I almost have anxiety about how much crap is going to be crammed into this season.
I
Like,
do
not
too.
like,
I don't feel anxiety for me as much, but I
right.
feel like because I think they're still going to hit the emotional beats. I think they've learned that lesson of that, but I feel like I hope there's enough context for people that they're not just hitting um like without like the points without like enough massage around the points and setting it up for people to feel the emotion they're supposed to feel with those points. I'll feel it because I have the internal context, but I don't know if they'll feel it. A show watcher might say, oh, like, how did this all of a sudden happen? And, like, why do I care about this? And, that type of thing. And
Right. Yeah,
so
I
hopefully
hope
they've thought through that.
Yeah, I was looking back, and I'll touch on this a little bit as we go through, but I was doing some homework and like who the directors are that we've gotten so far and who the writers are that are new to the writers room and like kind of what experience they have.
Mm-hmm.
It does make me a little anxious looking at how green some of these writers are. I will be honest.
You know what? I was counting on you for that because I know you look into that a lot, and I didn't have a chance to like look at the history of each writer and what they've done. A couple of them, the Beckwith, Tyler Beckwith,
Beckwith.
Yeah. Haven't done something with Outlander before. I feel like I recognize that name.
Not that was on her IMDb resume.
For some reason, I recall that name as writing something for us or being involved with Outlander in some way, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was, but I remember the name.
Yeah. Yeah, I am really excited about this season. I think I'm more excited about this season than I have been for any other season thus far, which is saying a lot.
I am too, because I really, Echo and Moby are favorite books of mine. That I look at that as like one story, but as one story, I love that whole. I feel like, and I was saying this on my thing yesterday that I was at. I kind of feel like that was when Diana hit her prime, was in those books. Like that is where you saw all her writing skill, all her storytelling skill, and so it's so intriguing. You got all of the components. You got the supernatural elements start really kicking in those books, more so. You get all the different generations and all of that. So to me, like, it's just, and then she does such good craft in those books, just in her whole writing and titling and everything. So dialogue, storytelling. So I just feel like that was when she was really on top of her game. It was the last ones that she wrote before the show started. So she had all her skill built up without all the distraction of the show. So I kind of feel like that was when we got her best,
Yeah.
So I really love those books. So I really want them to be done well. And I think I really feel like because she made a comment that they kept a lot of dialogue from the books, but they did have to streamline a lot. But, like, I don't know how much invention they did. I think they stuck with inventing, at least in certain parts, to adapt, not so much
from point A to
because
B.
There's too much to get in that's there. You know what I mean? They're already, it's like they don't have a lot of room to adapt if they're doing all that they're doing,
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's insane the amount of stuff that they're planning on cramming into this season. Like, absolutely insane. And when I first read this series, and I think you know this, but when I first read this series, Echo was like my least favorite book.
I know, you told me that. And I'm like, why?
But I have you to thank for that not being the case anymore, because I did your book club. And I feel like on that second read, I was like, why did I not like this book? Like, it's a really good book. And then when you pair it with Moby, it's just like, it's a really fantastic story. So I'm really excited. I've only had a few William naysayers on my account for all the people that have sent love for that casting and like those promo images that they released this week. There have only been a couple negative Nancy's. So I take that as a good sign. Like, I feel like they're doing this promotion right, with like kind of getting people, like giving them advance notice of like, hey, we're going to have William and here are the hunters and like all of these new characters that we're going to get.
Okay, so here's the thing. And I kind of am getting, this is kind of more coming into me as I'm getting more promotional elements and stuff
Mhm.
that came out. But Echo is with the caltrop on the
Mhm.
cover. It's meant to symbolize that there are a lot of sharp points in the book, but also there are four main storylines. And I think the show is showing that in the way that they've done rolled out, depict the images. They've done like sets for what, they've almost put them on equal level. If you notice, you see the same stuff coming out for Jamie Claire that you see coming out for for the Max, that, and then you see that same kind of packaging of photos for Ian, and you see now the thing for William. Those are your four caltrop points. You have, the Max, the Frasers, Ian and the Hunters, and William and John. Like those are your, and then a little bit that the Ian and William cross a little bit, but those are your main spokes of, or whatever you want to call it. And you kind of see them setting that up. So I hope that they're going to stay true to that. I give everybody their story, you know what I mean? And space, because this really is, Echo is really when things advance, to give everybody more equal space. You know what I mean? You see this Frasers almost step back a little bit to allow the other things to flourish a little more. So hopefully they're still doing that. And it seems like from their promotion, that's what they're presenting,
Yeah.
And you see it a little bit, even in just the fact that you see William and Ian in the key art coming over smaller, but driving forward, right, in the background. So it's kind of like, it's almost like they're emerging, like that's only thing you're missing is the Max in the key art, but we still got lots of pictures of them,
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so I think they're gonna do good on that. I think so.
I'm waiting this week for one of the little video snippets like we've got with the Frasers, the Max.
We haven't received that yet, like any kind of scene. Usually they release a scene, like an actual scene.
Well, I think that's going to be World Outlander Day.
Yes, I agree. Hopefully.
But this week, I really look for us to get a little video promo. Like we've gotten those like 20 to 30-second little clips with the dialogue.
Excuse my hands.
You're fine. With the dialogue notes on it. We've gotten one for Jamie and Claire so far, Roger and Bree, and we got Ian's this week. So I look to get Williams this coming week.
Say that again. What do you mean dialogue?
So like they're just like little videos that they've put together of like where our characters are starting this season, and we got Ian's and the Max this past week, so I think that we'll probably get Williams. We'll probably get one for William or the Hunters this week, because we're 3 weeks out now. It was 3 weeks from yesterday.
I'm trying to think. What do you mean, like their little package? That little package that we got with the Max, and the little package that we got with the it's just the like healer thing for Claire. Oh, thank you, honey.
It's just the little like promo video that we got of like different scenes of them in it. They're like mini trailers, but they're for
each characters.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I follow you. Yeah, but we did get that a little bit for the Frasers too.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think we're gonna get it for William because he's the only major story point in season 7 so far that we haven't gotten anything.
I kind of feel like they're keeping him very like a mystery. They don't want us to hear him talking. Yeah,
I know.
They're trying to keep it like everybody kind of wondering about this new guy and what he is. And I think that's why they're being like, they made his pictures roll out last, his picture pack. He was the last one to do that. So he's probably going to be the last one to get, some little, package of his words.
Right.
We haven't, I kind of hope, I'm wondering about Lord John. I'm kind of wondering if we're going to get as strong of a presence of him as we get in the books.
I've wondered the same thing because, whenever I was putting together my outline and like kind of stuff I wanted to talk about for today, I'm like, okay, well, where do I think all of the Lord John stuff from the books is going to fit in? And then I'm like,
it's not.
I don't know if it's going to be in there. Yeah.
I don't think we're getting the Percy bit. I don't think we're getting that stuff.
I would love to say that we're going to see him at least go back to England and kind of interact with the fam a little bit, but I don't even think that's going to happen because at this point in the show, he's already come back from England once and like, okay, is it freaking an airplane ride? Like he's just back and forth, back and forth. Like it doesn't
Yeah, it's
take
not
so
easy to
long to
do
get
that.
over there. So if he came
The
back with William, then which is kind of implied, I guess, or I don't know.
we'll
There are
likely get him
seasons.
more in the second half than the
Yeah,
first half. I
well,
think
for
we're just going
sure.
to get a
Yeah.
couple token appearances from him in the first half, but in the second half, we'll get, of course, more because then we're more involved with him as in the story. The other couple little observations that I kind of have come around to is I don't think we're getting Morse Creek Bridge. I think they've cut that. Because now I don't think that's what the whole thing was with Roger. Because now we saw more of that scene. We saw more of that beach stuff, and him walking toward where the camp is. And we've seen him with the preacher guy. We've seen now him with Bree walking, and we've seen him with Donner. So I kind of feel you don't see the Max in any of that.
Mhm.
So I kind of feel like that's going to be the Max story of the first episode is those scenes. Like while this is all going on with the Frasers, we're going to see maybe when he was studying to be a pastor, that guy said, hey, there's this troop, let's go minister to them and pray with them as they're barking on this thing or something like that. And that's just their own little storyline in the first episode of what they're doing. I don't think it has anything to do with Morse Creek.
It could also be that they were filming, like they knew that they wanted to use that filming location for some other like stuff in a different episode and they didn't want to come back to it. So they were also had that set up for another story point as well, but they're just filmed it out of order.
Yeah, but if we think that Roger is going back in two at the end of two, which I think, or in two, then there's not much space for him to be in a scene like that in future episodes. So it has to be either one or two. And I think in two, he's already busy with having babies and getting Jules and planning to leave. I don't think he's going to be dealing with that then. So I feel like it's in one. And so therefore, if it's going to be separate from Jamie and Claire. So that's why I think that's what it is. And I think I don't know why Donner's there. Maybe he's with the army somehow, or maybe he's a prisoner of theirs, because when we see the fire scene in the trailer, he still has a manacle on. So maybe he was a prisoner and escaped. I don't really know, but I kind of feel like that's what's happening in those scenes now that we've seen a little more.
Yeah. I just meant like the actual camp part of it might be something that they're using for not like the actual Max stuff, but the actual.
But we saw him with them in the
camp.
Yes, we saw him and the preacher walking into the camp in one of the behind the scenes shots.
Okay.
So it's almost like the preacher was bringing Roger there maybe to pray with the soldiers or like kind of give him one of his little trials to, be a minister or whatever. That's all that's what I'm thinking, because it's kind of like they don't have much time with them in the past. So, and I think too, their time they got enough going on in two. I don't think they're doing that in two. They got so much. Two is going to be enormous. So do you want to start?
Yeah, we'll just get into it.
Yes.
So 701. So I'm going to do like a little, what we know, what's been officially released at the beginning. And then we'll get into our title thoughts and plot theories for that episode. So 701, A Life Well Lost. Block 1 was directed by Lisa Clark. So this is all assuming that they filmed in order, which I'm pretty sure they did. So that would mean that Lisa Clark directed 701 and 702. Now she has some big credits for her.
Oh, so I hope so. If they're giving her the premiere,
So
I mean, I would imagine
directed for The Spanish Princess, Sanditon, and Call the Midwife. So those are her. She has a really big resume, but those are the three that really like stood out to me that I think people would really recognize. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. It's written by Danielle Barrow, who has also written Famous Last Words and Sticks and Stones for Outlander. So I was
Okay,
kind
so
of surprised they gave her the premiere. Were you?
yes.
I was like, like heretofore it has been Matt Roberts or Ron Moore have written the premieres. And this is the first season that has kind of broke from the mold a little bit and just given it to somebody who's only written, like, not even Tony Graffia or somebody like that wrote the
I
premiere.
know. I think they
Like,
wanted, and I think the reason behind that, I'm kind of wondering how this is going to feel as a premiere, because I kind of feel like it's going to feel more like an episode than a premiere. That's how I feel, because they really can't like lay out a bunch of stuff in this episode because it's like in the middle of this action, and I feel like it's more just picking up on the cliffhanger and telling that story, which isn't the way a premiere is supposed to be. But, and so in that case, maybe that's why they like treated it like an episode more than a premiere, even though Diana said that wasn't really, the next episode wasn't really a premiere,
yeah.
I guess they had Diana originally writing the rescue episode,
Yeah.
but
yeah, it's a very interesting choice. I wasn't sure what to make of it. And yeah, whenever you look at, I mean, this was a pretty big cliffhanger at the end of season 6.
absolutely.
And so, especially for non-book readers, yeah, this literally picks up in the middle of action that you can't, I've just been trying to, like you, make sense of how they're going to format this episode and lay groundwork for what we see for the rest of the season, when in all actuality you're not even really gonna get any of your main characters that are, besides Jamie, Claire, Ian, Roger, Bree, you're not really gonna get any.
Yeah, I don't think you are.
So I've been struggling with how this is all. I think it's going to be a great episode, don't get me wrong, but I think,
yeah, I just think though you can't, I think it's not going to be a typical premiere. That's what I'm saying. It's not going to be a typical, okay, here is our thematics for the season, and here's the like starting all of the different storylines trailing out. I think it's really, they're using the first like 2 or 3 episodes to roll out all the storylines where they can stick things in, so
okay, so I have thoughts. I'm struggling with whether to throw my plot theories in here or wait.
Well, why not?
Yeah,
because
okay, yeah,
and we're on the episode, isn't that what we're doing, telling our theories?
Yeah, I hadn't read the episode description or anything yet, but
yeah, yeah, I did have the episode description. Oh, you didn't read it?
No, I didn't read it yet. Like,
did you want to know?
No, I read it. I just haven't read it in like right now.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I'm thinking, do you want me to go pull it up? I have them somewhere.
Yeah, I have it in my outline here. So it was released by Starz, the first 3 episode descriptions. So 701's episode description is, and they normally expand upon this like within the week before the episode, they normally give like a more fleshed out description. But these are the bare bones descriptions. So 701 is, Jamie races towards Wilmington to rescue Claire from the gallows, only to discover that the American Revolution has well and truly reached North Carolina.
And that's the part that they are putting more, I think, a little more emphasis than they had originally planned, to kind of really point up that the revolution is underway. Maybe you hear that bit like in the trailer where some lady is saying, haven't you seen the unrest and all of this type of stuff, and so I kind of feel like that's they're kind of putting in the seeds of discontent, where maybe they wouldn't have pushed that aspect as much until the premiere of the next season, if they had been able to put this all in as it was. You know what I mean? And maybe they originally had Moore's Creek in the end of the last season, but I don't think they do it now. They just don't have a space for it,
I think if we had gotten like all of season 6, that they would have included more like Moore's Creek Bridge and all of that stuff, and then saved like the hardcore we're in the revolution now stuff for season 7, and that was probably the original plan if I had to guess. But So as we're sitting here talking about this, and kind of talking about how they're going to format this episode, I'm wondering, part of me tends to think that this Claire rescue thing is not going to be very much of the episode.
Really?
I tend to think that probably because we've got the Max, and then we've got Jamie and Ian and what's happening there. But I also am wondering, since this is the premiere and we're talking about getting plots going forward for the rest of the season, if we make it back to the Ridge and maybe Bree gives birth at the end of the premiere, because that would propel forward the Max storyline. It would get them back to the Ridge for everything that needs to happen. Because I'm just thinking, if Brianna gives birth at the beginning of episode that's a lot of shit that's got to happen in that second episode.
I think the second episode is, and I think that's why one of the reasons Tony's written it, because number one, I think it's going to give her, that's why I think the birth is in that episode, because I think she wanted that episode as a chance, because she got a lot of bitching from people about the way she handled it. Well, I know she should have. Rightfully so, but she got a lot of bitching from people, and she heard she got lashed. I mean, she even knew, like, oh, I've been hearing so much about what's been, and so I think she wants a chance to like make that right, number one. So I kind of have really feel that birth is going to be in that second episode. I know what you're saying though. But I also think they gave her that because there is so much different little threads of, I think really they are merging those 4 episodes into like maybe 2.5 episodes, 3 episodes at the most of stuff to cover what they would have covered in 4. And I think 2 is where you're getting a lot of the crunch of that. You know what I mean? I think that's where they kind of really crunched a lot in to make that condensed thing. Because we know that 4 is getting into season book 7 stuff, so I kind of feel like they want to wrap everything that was supposed to be in the other book in those first 3 episodes. So, and basically, according to the descriptions, that gives you that impression as well. So, so I think that they're gonna focus on they're gonna do a little bit of stuff with the Max to kind of create more connective vibes with them, and to like reconnect you with their marriage a little bit more and stuff. And because they're going to have their own thing, I think that's probably what they're thinking, is because they're separated, you're already getting used to their story being on its own. You know what I mean? It's kind of breaking you into that idea. And carrying what's going on with them by themselves, apart from the Frasers. And then I think we're going to have more scene of the jail than I expected with these women, because you got all these, they wouldn't have done that if they weren't going to have banter and funniness and things happening in that, the way they did in the book. I kind of feel like you're going to get a scene similar to the vibe of the Whore's Breakfast, where they're all kind of being type of characters and saying snarky things and stuff. It's probably one of them that says, have you not seen the unrest lately? I'm kind of thinking now it's one of the jail people, the girls, because when you saw those women, I'm like, okay, they got to be giving them something to do, otherwise why don't they just stick with one? And that's another thing I'm thinking on the Donner thing. Maybe he's with the jail because when they all had to leave and flee with the governor, you know what I mean? When that happens, we saw that happens in the first, we saw them come and say, who's the healer and blah, 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 blah. Maybe they cleared out some of the prisoners and took him, with them, so that he's with them now.
Maybe.
That's possible. That's how come Roger runs into them, because he was in jail. But now everything falls apart, all of the order and the, so the people that were in jail, there's no more rule of England in what's happening with the jail. So they might have taken him and moved him, or something, stuck him in the army or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know much about like historically what happened with people that were imprisoned whenever, there was
I think, if it was if either they were moved with the army, or the army could conscript them. into being like, you basically press them and say, either, you're going to go and hang
Or
for your
hang.
thing, or you're
Yep.
going to be a soldier in our thing, so like that's happened too.
Yeah, they probably gave him a choice. You can either be shot or you can go with us and serve in the army, one or the other. But I could see that happening.
We saw this little scene of them on the beach having this talk. I kind of feel like they're trying to like connect you a little with the Max
Yeah.
and what's going on with them a little bit to kind of get you invested in their storyline a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're going to get them going. You get the impression that he came in and took to her for to do the thing with the governor. I think there might be skipping the whole Tryons, her going to Tryons and then them going to the ship. Maybe they're just condensing that and taking her to the ship. Yeah, that could be what they do. And then
I'm thinking that
Jamie comes there, finds out she's gone, and then they have to go and do the whole story that they do with Tom and Jamie and rescuing her and all that stuff.
But I'm thinking that Jamie ends up going to find Roger and Bree. Because like he did when Bree got kidnapped by Bonnet in the books, and interrupts the whole presbytery thing, and that's why Roger doesn't become a preacher, because there's a line in I think it's the UK trailer that got released, but Roger is talking to Bree and he says, "I would do anything to find you." And I think it's just that like he's talking to her about Jamie finding Claire, and like if it were me, I would do whatever I had to do, so that's kind of the vibe that I got. Like, I think that's how they're going to make all of that work, is like taking what happened with Bree and combine it with what happened with Claire, since they did all of that different in season 5. And
kind of like, like a callback type of thing.
What do you mean?
Like, kind of like an echo of what they've done before with, how like a parallel,
I think it's more like not even recycling, but like that's the way that it happened in the book isn't the way that it happened in the show. So they're using that material, since they didn't get to use it for Bree getting kidnapped, they're using it for Claire getting kidnapped instead. It's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. So
I think we'll get the rescue. We'll get I think they're going to not spare. I think they're really going to do that whole scene with Claire and Tom. I think we're going to get like dialogue, a lot of dialogue scene in that. I think we're going to then get a lot of the post scene with Jamie and Claire, where he tells her, I would consider my life well lost, and so forth. We saw the little conversation that Tom and Jamie have, where he says, I gave her a promise that, I protect her with my body and all that other stuff. So you're getting all those conversations. We've seen little snippets of them, which means that we're getting those conversations. So I do see quite a bit of that in there. So now I'm kind of feeling like, I feel like they're going to come back, and then I think we're going to see them, the 3 of them come home, and they're going to be happy they're home. And then I think, I don't know. Somehow I think the next episode is going to open with Roger and Bree already home.
Do you think we're going to get any of Major McDonald?
On the ship?
On the ship, yeah.
Yes. I think that.
So, because I feel like it would have been a waste to bring his character into it so late in the game, just like the governor. Like the governor had that one short,
and Brown's in that episode too. Brown's in the first episode.
His credit in that. Yeah. But I just think it would have been completely pointless to even cast McDonald and Governor Martin for season 6 if you weren't going to carry it over and have the payoff at the end with Claire's, and especially since in theory we're not getting Morse Creek Bridge anymore. Like we don't get that complete arc of Major McDonald's story, but I feel like it's kind of like, okay, why'd you even bother type thing if we don't see them in this episode.
Yeah, I do think we're going to see Major McDonald on the ship at some point. I'm not sure if that's how he if he get, I don't think they're going to go through all that hoopty, but I do think we're going to get a look at him.
I think
I kind of feel like he's involved because they got to bring him in. They got to somehow circle back to that.
Yeah.
And and the governor, of course, and the governor, wanting to get the men, and all of that. I think we're going to get some of that as well, because I think they need to do that to establish the situation,
right?
The revolutionary situation. And I think that's part of them setting up a future storyline by showing the irritation that the governor has with what the hell's up with these people. And they think, now we're stuck on this ship while they've taken over my city and blah, blah, blah. I think they're going to get into that a little bit.
I think they're going to have the burning of the what is it? The fort. I can't remember what fort it is.
Fort Johnston.
Fort Johnston. That's what it was. I just think that might be part of what that description is alluding to, because that was a big thing that, it's one of the reasons that Governor Martin fled in the first place. So, I think that might, even
I
if
agree.
it's not
I agree.
Veronica
Veronica says it's also foreshadowing for Bree and Roger finding each other through time later. I think so as well. I think that's what that's about as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's definitely foreshadowing. Very clever working in there. But yeah, I think that Fort Johnston will probably get like at least a glimpse of it, even if it's just a little CGI thingy from the sea. But
that's possible. I would like to see them do that.
And if we're not looking at going back to the Ridge, I mean, I think we'll probably go back to the Ridge by the end of the premiere.
I do think so, because there's a big time jump. There's a little bit of a time jump as well that has to happen before the fire.
I feel like we're following Jamie a little bit. I just get the vibe we're following Jamie a little bit more in this premiere than like his perspective that we got in the books.
Mm-hmm. So
it makes sense that we're
getting the live view of the Tom and Jamie conversation as opposed to having it told after the fact. So, and I always like that when they make those kinds of adaptation choices. They're the ones I love. Is when you show me something I know happened in the book, but I never saw it. They could have a field day with that on Bees, because there's tons of stuff that happened on page.
Yada, yada, yada over.
That we were like, we want to see that. They could definitely make a lot of book fans happy with Bees if they were going that far.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really, whenever I saw that as one of the things that they dropped, I was like, I'm so excited about that, because we just heard about it. We didn't actually see it in the books. So I was really excited about that. All right. Anything else from Ep 1?
Let me just address Anita. Anita, but what I'm saying is I think that because we saw Roger with those scenes, I think it might be that the preacher, as part of his thing, the preacher is bringing him over with him to minister to those people, because you saw all the women coming over toward it too as they were walking toward it. So I kind of feel now in the little thing we just saw. So I kind of feel like the church kind of said, let's go over to where the soldiers are camped and like take care of them. And the women brought them food, and they brought them whatever. And I think that's how he runs into Donna. And I think that's what that's about. It's not the battle. I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's too much to shove into that episode if they want to do the rescue right.
The only thing that I kind of am not sure about that Bree and Roger on the beach scene is that Bree does not look pregnant at all. Like her waist is like this big.
Her pregnancy is the longest pregnancy on Earth,
Yeah. It just like, we had finally gotten to the point at the end of season 6 where you could tell she was pregnant. So I feel like that would be rewinding it a little bit. So that's almost why I
didn't look closely to see about that, but I kind of feel like he's wearing the same clothes as that.
I know. Well, and that's why
so is she. And they're different than the ones when they time travel. They're different clothes.
Right.
So I feel like that's all in the first episode.
Yeah.
That's just my thoughts, but I could be wrong.
But that was the only, like, whenever I was trying to put in order where all this stuff happened based off of what I was looking at, that was the only like visual cue that I was like, that's the reason that I put it with the second episode stuff when they go to Wilmington, because it just really didn't look like she was pregnant at all. Like she looked so tiny, like fully corseted in there. Like, So that was my only thing on it. So I don't know. I mean, we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. 702.
I mean, I'm really, really excited. I really can't wait to see the Tom and Claire scene. I think that has the potential to be great, you know.
Oh yeah. For sure.
So I kind of feel like, you know, I sit in here, let's see, Roger breaching part of their F1. Yep, I said maybe Donner is there as a soldier of some sort or a prisoner. And I made these comments. And I also think you're going to see a lot of retrofitting in this season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because there was a lot, I kept saying all along, there was a lot of things that you know, they didn't allow
put this
for.
in now,
You know, they don't put it in
weird.
now, it's going to feel weird. They're going to have to do something to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting into 2, because I know you're getting into that, I think you're going to see like things being done by Tony, you know, because she didn't put things in that she needed to before. And
you're like, your mess, you clean it up.
And I think another reason they gave her that episode is because there's going to be a lot of little disparate threads. This is Tony's specialty, you know, when you got to fit a lot of different things together that somehow they fit together and make an episode, they give it to Tony. Tony is like the one that does those episodes. And sometimes they stick it to Diana if they give her an episode like that. But Tony is the one that can craft little bits of things and threads that pull things together. And I think that's why they gave her 2, because they got a lot going on in 2.
A lot.
Happiest place on earth, my ass.
Yeah. Okay, so 702.
I almost feel like that's kind of sarcastic in a way, as well as the thing.
I feel like it's very literal, but then cynical at the same time.
Exactly.
Exactly. It like you're gonna have things at the very beginning of this episode where it's going to be like the high life, like everything's great again. It's gonna feel a lot like the Fiery Cross. And then at the end, it's like, just
look at our happy home. Our family. We got a new baby. And everything's just beautiful, you know.
Exactly.
Now the thing is, Alan is in that episode, and I kind of feel like I debated this, but I kind of feel like it's toward the beginning of the episode, because I kind of feel like they will want to knock it out
and close up the Christie storyline
before they, you know, because that would have been part of. Like it's maybe its own episode, and they don't have that time now. So I kind of feel like they will want to close the book on that and then start the new thing. And I think that's where we're going to get into it. And we also got to spend time somehow doing something with the bugs so that it's not completely a shock, you know, when they have this, like they got to start seeding that in there somehow in this episode too. So here, I put Oh, go ahead. I was going to give you the list of what I have, but you talk. Go ahead.
The episode description, the official episode description for this one is Claire makes a startling discovery about Roger and Brianna's newborn daughter. So that's the line that I was like, I think will happen really early, her birth.
I do too.
Because if it happens at the end of the episode, they're not going to include that in the episode description. We don't think it happens at the end.
I think they time travel into because in 3 they find that the description says they find a thing for them in the 20th century or whatever. So
so that's the fact
they're already gone. They're already gone.
The fact that they put that as like the first sentence is also kind of why I thought that it might take place at the end of 1, just because it's already taken for granted that Roger and Bree have a newborn baby daughter with the episode description for 2.
Possible.
So that's kind of why I was like, well, maybe it's at the end of 1, but and then anyway, so it continues. It says a familiar face returns to the ridge with explosive consequences. So that returns to the ridge is why I don't think it's Donner, because Donner's never, well, I guess he has been to the ridge. Never mind. They made that different in the, okay. Never mind. Don't listen to me. I'm just talking. So maybe it could be Alan and Donner, both. I don't know, but I think
they're both in the episode. I think Donner and Alan all is in that episode. Plus the bit. This is what I have as my list of stuff. You ready? All in this episode. Alan, the bugs, Bree's birth, discovery of an issue with the baby, struggle of what to do, travel to Wilmington, meet Lord John and William with Bree, scene with Lord John and Jamie, Firefly scene that merges both conversations with Bree and Jamie, one with the Fireflies in Disney World and one with what do you think I could do in your time when they realize they need to go back. I think that's all going to happen there. Going to the Stones, dealing with the like them being sad about them like losing their children or whatever, and everything. Then coming back and like time, maybe there'll be a little time jump. Then I think part of me almost thinks that when she looks over, that scene where she looks over and you see that kind of looks like a light is in her house.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, and she kind of looks like almost as if, why is there a light in my house or something?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like they're already in there.
Oh,
and she walks in on them, she like goes to investigate and they're there. And maybe that's how it happens.
You kind of see that happen. Yeah, because she's inside or she's outside and there's like a little light in, and then you see her, and I'm pretty sure it's all the same time of day and like the same episode because she's in the same clothes and everything. But you see in the trailer, she walks into her surgery and she's looking at something, and then she looks across and sees
it says, "Get out of my house."
A match snap like light in the kitchen. And so I think that's all right there together in that.
Yeah. But I think at that point, the kids are already gone. They've come back. They see their house when they come back. And I think that's kind of like, part of the happiest place in life. They come back and they're like, oh, we're home. At least we have our home. We don't have the kids anymore, but this is something we can cherish. Of course they're going to do that, and
yeah.
And then, because we saw that. And then I think we have that scene, and I'm kind of feeling like when he says it has explosive consequences, I almost feel like you're going to see the match drop, and you're going to see that.
That's going to be it.
You're going to see like that scene, and then it's just going to be like, you don't know what happened to them because they're all in there, Jamie. And, we saw like Jamie kind of like freaked out, we saw, and it's going to just kind of be like, they're all there. And she's like, no, don't. And then you see the thing drop and it just goes, and that's going to kind of be like the cliffhanger of that episode. But that's a lot of stuff in that episode.
Yeah. So I do kind of.
So good luck, Tony, on that one.
So I don't think they're going to include all of that in the second episode. Yeah. I have marginally less. Okay. So I think Mandy's going to be born at the end of 701. And then this discovery of her birth defect, the whole Firefly conversation, them going to Wilmington, the scenes with William and John, all of that stuff. Potentially the stuff on the beach with Roger and Bree, because like I said, she doesn't look pregnant to me. So I think maybe that could be in 702, but we'll see. Jury's out. Them traveling back through the Stones, Jamie and Claire returning to the Ridge, and that is when we get, at the end of the episode is when we get Alan's confession and we get the full story on what happened with Malva, because they did film that scene. So I think we're likely.
Yeah, I just think that's going to be in the beginning, and you think it's going to be at the end.
I think it's going to be the end. I think that it's going to start out as the happiest place on earth with everybody like high on relief. Bree's delivered her baby safely. It's a cute little baby girl, and then oh shit, she has a birth defect, and then we go on this whole crazy adventure trying to get the stones and all of that. And I think that it'll.
So you don't see the fire happening starting in 2 at all.
Firmly in 703. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I think it starts in 702 and it continues in 703. I think that's going to be the cliffhanger thing.
I think it'll relatively be at the beginning of 703. I think that we'll get I think we might get Jocasta maybe at the beginning of 703 because she has been credited as being in the 7th season, and I don't really know why. So I'm thinking that might be where she appears at the beginning of 703, kind of to tie all the gold stuff in with the burning of the big house and all of that. I think that's going to be like the plot for 703. And then I've got some stuff from other storylines that I think this is where we're going to get the woven kind of braided storyline, I guess. But yeah, that's what I had for 702. I think the fire and all of that is going to be contained to 703.
Okay, I think it's going to be the cliffhanger. So I think they're going
Somebody write it down so that when we go through, because I think that would be fun to see like whose predictions are right and who, like, I just kind of want to like, because I got to, we have
because
those
we don't usually differ that much. So when we do, that would be good to see.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I was like, we did all those shows at the beginning of season 6. And I know that like I got some stuff and you got some stuff. And so that's why I was like, but I can't remember who said what for the most part. So
I kind of feel, part of me feels like we're not seeing Jocasta until the second half.
Really?
I do. I kind of feel like that's not where she comes into play as much, maybe, but I could be wrong, because I feel like they're saving all the people that we don't get to see till the second half to talk about them in the second, because they haven't mentioned anything about her.
No, they haven't.
So
but, yeah, I would say we really didn't get anything about her leading up to season 6 though either, did we?
It's 12. Yeah, I think we did. Actually. Okay. I thought we did.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I was just trying to
I'm not that really invested in Jocasta anyway. Whenever she shows up, she shows up. They totally like screwed her over. Yeah, they trashed her storyline big time. So
yeah. So that's kind of what I've got for 702. 703 is an interesting one for me. From the technical side, because 703 is Death Be Not Proud. The director of the second block is Jackie Gold, who I could not find anywhere. So no idea what her credits are. Could not find her. Written by Tyler English Beckwith, who only has 2 writing credits on IMDb. Very green. So if this is like the whole Bugs storyline and aftermath of the fire and all of that, like I'm really just like I have nerves about this one, let's put it that way, because it seems like a very green production team from what I can find. So and I will give the caveat that overall for this season I feel more confident in how the storylines are going to play out, because Sam and Kat have their EP credits, and they had more of a steady hand on the tiller. So like they could step in as executive producers and be like, no, that's not right, whereas they couldn't in previous seasons. So I'm wishy-washy on it, I guess, because we have a lot of inexperienced and new writers to the series, but we also have some very veteran people monitoring things. So
I have a hot take for episode 3. Are we getting into episode 3, Neil? Or yes.
Yep. Oh, I guess I can read the description.
Read the description first.
Yeah, so
that played into some of what I was thinking.
Gotcha. Okay, so the description is Jamie discovers Archbug has been keeping a dangerous secret. In the 20th century, Roger and Brianna find a link to Jamie and Claire. Okay, give me your hot
I'm shocked that they put that in a description that they released early.
I know,
but I guess they figure people realize it by now.
Yeah.
But that was surprising because they've been so like. They don't want to show. Yeah, they haven't shown anything of them in those clothes or anything to kind of indicate or confirm that they're going forward in time. So I kind of am surprised they just blatantly put it into an episode description when they haven't shown any clips of that, or images or anything. Yeah. So anyway, so I said I think we get the continuation of the fire, them throwing the buckets on. I think all that part of it. I think the idea of the Death Not Be Proud thing, because the idea of that poem is that you're beating, like, don't be so proud of yourself, Death, you didn't really win. Right. You know what I mean? Type of thing. And so I think, because I'm thinking thematically, I think we get the fire, but that's why I think it's going to leave the cliffhanger where you don't know what happened. It just looks like they were all in there and the thing is like, whew, Yeah. And so that you see them get out in 3 and throw their stuff on the thing, the like the buckets or whatever, that whole scene that you're seeing. I also have a hot take that I also think you see the bugs thing really come out there because it says that right in the description. And their threat, you see the funeral, the threat with Ian, and maybe they come by the end of the episode with the decision they're going to leave. That could be by the end of the episode. For William, I think we get the fire ship scene in this episode. And I think that they're merging Adam and Henry as one character.
Yeah, you said that last night in your live. And
I did. Well, everybody here didn't hear that.
And I was like, yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. I was like, totally, for sure going to do that.
Yeah, that is, I think, for sure, because I'll tell you why I think all of the things I just said. The scene, now that they released the picture of the guy playing Henry, as if it's significant, they released the picture of the guy playing Henry. When you looked at the picture and you go back to the scene that we saw, that little teeny clip of them filming with William and some other guy that's a little shorter than him, blonde, running across the street, acting like they're banging into each other, like they're carousing, like the Adam and William scene. Because I said, I bet you that's Adam. Remember when I saw that, I said that. Now I'm thinking that's Henry.
It's Henry.
And that they've used Adam into Henry as one brother. And that this way, when Henry gets sick, we already kind of know him a little and care that he's sick. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel like that. And I feel like that scene was the fire ship scene that's going to happen, because they made a big deal to describe William as he gets like a lot of wake up call in the beginning, in the early, from what he thought. And so I think before he goes to Ticonderoga, they got to get that out, and that happens before he goes to Dismal. I think he meets Richardson in this episode as well and gets sent like on the mission to do this. That picks up then in the next episode. So that's kind of what I think is happening with the Williams storyline in there. I think we're going to get the fire ship thing. I think we're going to get Richardson, and we're going to get the commission, maybe with John, and maybe John will be in that episode, but I don't know, where John and Richardson and him, and he gets the commission to go to the Dismal Swamp and deliver these messages or whatever. And then I think we get to peek in on the Max to know that they beat death. They didn't die in the stone travel. Mandy didn't die from her thing. You know what I mean? So they kind of are doing that theme with the death and the be not proud thing with them. And maybe it'll be the scene of them arriving at Fiona's. And after Mandy gets her surgery, but before she gets older yet, like when they first arrive. And I think that the box is going to be that it was delivered to Fiona to kind of, streamline that, like,
since Mrs. Graham,
or that she found it in the garage or whatever, because they took over, you know what I mean?
And because she found it because Mrs. Graham used to help the Reverend with his research, because that's how she found the obituary too.
Yeah. I kind of feel like she unearths and she's like, oh, this was here, blah, blah, blah. Now that you guys came, blah, 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 here it is, or whatever. I kind of feel they're doing that to merge those scenes. And let's see. And then that would mean that they can get the link, they get the information about, they get the box and they open the letter to see We Are Alive or whatever. I'm not sure if we'll get the whole thing of what them reading the letter, but I think we'll get the We Are Alive thing there. And it'll kind of be like they're happy. I don't know if I'm hoping we get to see like, so it was you.
I hope so. That was a good scene. And Rick and Sam both teased Sophie about that on separate interviews. So
yes.
That's what makes me
right.
think we get that scene, because they've both said similar things. Like it's
those damn matches. Yes.
Those damn matches. Yeah.
Yep. And so I kind of think at that point, now this is another little interesting point. I think that, and this is total prognostication, I kind of feel like when she gets that, they decide to go and check out Lollybrock, and that's when they find out Lollybrock is for sale and they want to buy it and all that kind of stuff. I kind of feel like that happens because I found out last night that when Maria was there with her friends, they spied a camper parked outside of Lollybrock. Like that is how they've set it up, that they're living in the camper while they're repairing Lollybrock.
Huh.
And so I think that that's where they're going to make the time jump, because Lollybrock was effed when Claire went there. You know, like it was nowhere near habitable.
Hospitable or
no, not hospitable. Habitational, whatever you want to call it. You know, they're not. It's not able to be lived in. It looked like a complete ruin. You know, and it's habitable. No. I don't know. I know there's a word.
I can't remember. Yeah, I know there's a word, but I'm like, dang it.
I know it's not habitual.
No, I know.
Anyway, habitable. Yes, habitable.
I was like, it sounds really close, but it's just not
it
right.
looked inhabitable is what it looked like. Inhabitable.
Inhabitable.
And it looked like a complete ruin. And I thought it's going to take a long freaking time to get that thing anywhere near to be able to be lived in at all. You know, like it looks completely desolated. So I'm thinking they probably do the time jump there, you know, between 3 and 4. I think we might even see the scene where he goes for the phone. It says when like little Jemmy goes to the phone, it says, I want to talk to granddad, you know, maybe we'll see the baby. And then I think we get, or maybe like, she's like maybe 1 or something. And then we get the jump in 4 that they've been there working for 2 years and, you know, living in this camper. And now things are progressing. And that's when we get the new kids. You know what I mean? In 4. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's how they're going to explain. That's how they're going to retrofit that choice that they made by making it be that, we can't just buy this and start living there and fixing stuff. We have to completely, live in a camper for 2 years to have enough time to fix this place, which I don't even think you could do that. But who am I to say, right? It looked pretty dilapidated. Claire was there.
Okay, so I think this 703, or 7, we're on 703. Yes, we are.
I just kind of explained what I think where I think that's where the time jump with the kids
time
happens,
jump for them.
Between 3 and 4.
Gotcha. Okay, so I think the whole plot with the burning of the big house is going to happen in 703, because I think those scenes that we've gotten with Jamie and Claire in their bedroom, like we've gotten a couple of little snippets of those. I think those might happen. One of them might happen in 702 and one of them might happen at the beginning of 703. But so I think that we'll get a little bit of a reprieve is what I'm thinking, but then it's going to go downhill fast with the Donner showing up, the burning of the big house, Mrs. Bug's death. I think we'll get Roger and Bree at some point deciding to buy Lollybrock. I think that and the time jump, I kind of agree, is at the end of 703 or the beginning of 704.
I think between those 2 episodes, when we come back to the max, it'll be that they have been, living in their camper, because that's about the episode where they were filming when she went there. Gotcha. Was the 4-5 period of time. So I think that they have that episode where what she saw was, I think, in 4. And she also talked about seeing a preschool or some kind of a thing at a primary school. So they might be doing that uncomfortable woman bit with the teacher there too, maybe. Yeah,
I just think that, so at the beginning of the teaser trailer, we got a little voiceover from Jamie and he was saying, I had another dream. I think that might happen at the beginning of 703, because I think he's talking about the dream that he had about Jemmy picking up the phone. I think that's what that's about. So it could be at the end of 702, I guess, or like, I don't know, somewhere in there.
When he says I had another dream, I think that's going to be the Jemmy one. I think the first one is with the jewel, when he sends back, after they go back. I think the first little intimate conversation that you saw is going to be when they get back and them in bed and she's like sad thinking, that she misses her kids and stuff or whatever. And he gives her a jewel, or somewhere in there, I think he's going to give her a jewel in 2 and say, I saved this for you. And she's like, why me? If something happens to me, blah, blah, blah. As she throws it out the window. I think that happens in that little scene that you're seeing in their bedroom, but I think that's in 2 when they were planning to leave. When they were planning to leave and like they were getting stones and like I think that's when he gives her stone and she throws it out the window. If she does that. I really hated that she did that,
I know.
Like don't throw the freaking jewels out the window. You don't know when hell you're gonna need one.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, he's right. Like if something happens to him, why on earth, like if Roger and Bree are in the 20th century, would she not go back if Jamie was no longer there? I mean, I know in the books, it's like, she doesn't physically think that she could handle going back another time.
We never talked about, I'm sorry, I don't mean to backtrack it. What do you think, we know Brown is in episode 1. What do you think is going to happen with him?
I don't know, because, you kind of see a resolution to that
because
story.
He was involved in Moore's Creek, but now he's not.
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't have Moore's Creek.
That's the resolution to that. So I don't know if he's going to meet his end instead, and that's going to be viewed as a better form of justice.
I would be okay with it.
Yes, I would totally be okay with that.
Kill them all.
Right.
Should do like a kill them all.
I just watched that episode again the other night, like on my rewatch, and I was like,
my God,
I'm not okay.
It was such a moment when he looks up and says, kill them all. Yep. Like, yes, kill them all.
Yeah. Man.
We're gonna get jail Facebook jailed for all this kill talk. It's a book, people.
Yeah.
We're not really planning a mass murder.
So
anyway, so I was curious because we never addressed that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think that we might get a more final solution to Mr. Brown.
In episode 1 to him.
Yes.
Maybe Ian will take him out.
Maybe.
That would be awesome. Ian's like the hitman of the family.
Well, I mean, that's not something that even the show really created. I mean, he's kind of like that in the books too.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. He's the hitman of the family. He's the tough dude. So I that's kind of
I have more.
Oh, okay.
Okay. For 703.
703. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I thought you were going to move to 704 and I was like, oh, I have more in 703.
Okay. I'm trying to watch your time. That's why I'm just being.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm almost done. So
okay, no problem.
I agree with you. I think that the fire ship scene is going to happen in 703. I think we're going to touch base with William and John. I think that the Richardson's going to come into play even briefly in 703. I think we're really going to start to get the setup for William's storyline. But my hot take for this episode.
Ooh, hot take.
This is a wag for miles, but this is like, I'm throwing it out there. So I have noticed that in all of the Mrs. Bug funeral stuff and all of that, Ian is nowhere to be seen in any of that footage. And so I think he leaves the Ridge earlier, like right after it all happens. I think and that's like, we don't see him again until he runs into Jamie and Claire at Ticonderoga. Like we see him, but not with Jamie and Claire. And so
who is he saying I want to fight for my country and stuff too?
I think that all of that is like, I think they're not isolating his story, but I think they're like fleshing it out and making him have interactions with different characters or whatever. I think that we'll see like obviously all the Great Dismal Swamp stuff and stuff, but I also think that he might encounter Denny and Rachel earlier in the show and like he knows that they're there, so he brings William to them. So this is all kind of my thought, because I really do think, based off of what I've seen in the promotional material, he leaves the Ridge like before Mrs. Bug's funeral and all of that. So I think I
don't think that, but that I could be wrong. No.
So I think that might be a departure in how they've kind of streamlined, because when we see Jamie and Claire in all the scenes of them like departing the Ridge and all of that, he's not with them either. So that's kind of my wag. That's my hot take. I think that they've kind of in a attempt to kind of streamline the story and keep it moving and interweave like all the William stuff with the Ian stuff and like keep it going. I think they've moved him off the ridge earlier. Like I still think he's going to be the reason that Mrs. Bug dies and stuff, but I don't
So
think
you
he's
don't think that you're going to get this scene of Arch threatening him and saying, "Give me your dog" and all that stuff? You think they're going to cut that? How are they going to then have that as a situational threat that ongoing for the?
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that it'll still be there. I just don't think he's going to like hang around after, like, you know. So I just feel like it's going to be very condensed and move very quickly, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So
I feel like he goes with them, and I think they start out together with a plan that they were going to take him to Scotland to say, you know, to basically keep him safe, and also because they promised they would, and all that kind of stuff. And Jamie's going to say something along that line. And the plan when they go in 4 is to go to Scotland, and then they get somehow pushed into having to go to Ticonderoga instead. I think that's kind of going to be the case. And I think that's where they split. And he has to go either, you know, maybe he's going and says, "I'll meet you there," and he's doing some other thing on the way, you know, that they invent because they kind of killed that, you know, original plan, you know, last season. So I think that they go and they originally come together, and I think what they plan that they're going to go to Scotland, and I think something interrupts that. Maybe, you know, he runs into someone he owes a favor to. I don't know who that would be. Maybe the guy that, or maybe the guy that tried to talk to him, that guy that was in Wilmington that they had that scene with, the Liberty guy that runs the Liberty Boys or whatever, Sons of Liberty. I can't remember his name, but, you know, somebody there like sees him and kind of pushes him to have to do and explains, like, you know, somehow pushes him in, and it makes it where for him to be where he feels like he's on his back's against the wall in some way, shape, or form to have to do it. And then it telling what I think the scene we saw is then him saying, "Look, I think we need to stay, but I'm still going to put you on the ship to Scotland." And I think that's where you see Ian say, "No, I want to, you know, I want to fight for this country too. I love this country too." And then I think somehow they part, because at that point, I think he says, we're all going to head to Ticonderoga. I'll go my way. You go your way. I got things to do on the way, whatever that is." And I think that's where he runs into William. And I think that's how that connects up in 4, you know, in the Dismal. That's my thought. I think that's all happening in 4. Okay. I put, for 4, are we in 4 yet?
Yeah, we're on 4.
Oh, okay.
Written by Mark Franklin Williams.
Is that a woman or a man? Is Mark a woman's name, or is it
the way that it's spelled
sounds like a woman?
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know.
But no major writing credits for them either. So yeah.
So I think in this scene, in this episode, do you want to say what you're saying, or are you done?
Yeah, I can. So for a most uncomfortable woman, I think that I'm trying to lean into the theme of this title a little bit.
Yeah, me too.
But I definitely think we're gonna get the Claire and Tom reunion, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Absolutely.
Because that's where this title comes from.
You think he's gonna do the kiss?
I think we might.
Yeah, I think so too. He's gonna definitely. I think that I can't wait to see Claire. She's gonna be like, "Oh my god,
what is happening?" I think that this is the episode where we're really going to lean into Brianna getting her job with the hydroelectric board.
What part of this job requires a penis? Yes, that definitely would make somebody uncomfortable.
That has to be in there. That line has to be in there.
Absolutely.
So I think in this episode, we're going to get the whole interaction. We're going to meet Rob Cameron and his goons. I think she's going to get locked in the tunnel. We're going to get all of that stuff.
Oh, you think all that's going to be in?
I think that's going to be in this episode. Yes, I think it's going to be in 704. And then I think we're also because remember, I'm leaning into Ian being separate from Jamie and Claire at this point. I think this is where Ian might meet Rachel for the first time. So we'll see. I don't know. That was kind of my thought, because I feel like since they're playing up the hunters so much, I feel like they're bringing them in earlier than we would see them normally. Just because, like, if they're not even bringing them until like episode 5 or 6, then why promote them, the hunters?
I think they're coming in 4.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, I think that a most uncomfortable woman would certainly
include Rachel
as well.
Yes, for sure.
And
Now Terry just said that she saw a behind the scenes pic of them all on a ship. Ian, Jamie, and Claire. So that definitely, I think we see that. I think that's going to be the end of 8, though.
I do. Yeah, that's what I think it'll be. Yeah, I think the end of 8 will be them going to Scotland, and then that's where it's going to cut. And then we'll pick back up with them in Scotland when 709 airs. But anyway, so, you know, in my wish list of things that I wish we were getting, but just don't think it's going to happen, I really wish we would have seen Dottie here in 704 as well. But I just don't think she's coming until the back half if we get her.
Neither.
I mean, I'm starting to think, based off of what Carmen said, that the details she got off of in Paris at LandCon, that
I must have missed that.
That's when Joey Phillips said that, like, said but didn't say that Dottie,
right. Okay. Yes.
So I think we might get her, but it's not going to be till the second half. Anyway, and then I was like, well, this might be a good episode to get a Fergus and Marcelly cameo. So
I don't think we're seeing them till the second half either.
You don't think so? So that was kind of
that's my thought anyway, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, so, but I was just like, if we're going to see them at all in this first half, it'll be this episode. I think that's kind of where I'm at on it. So anyway, that was my list for
my list. Okay, so I have I think they're going to take some good time with the Tom and Jamie, dealing with Tom and all of that. I think we're going to see all of that, and hold on, let me just see my notes here. And them explaining to each other what happened and all of that kind of stuff. And then this might be where they read the rest of the letter where they find out about the match. I think that's either going to happen at the end of the last episode or beginning of this episode, toward the beginning of this episode, as they're reading the rest of the letter and finding out what happened and reacting to it, you know, and because it points out that, you know, it's that Bree's invention caused these things, and you scientific women, you know, so I'm amazed that the 18th century kind of fits in with the idea of uncomfortable women. So I'm kind of thinking that they might start reading the letter and just to get the "we are alive" part, and maybe that is explained further in the second episode, but maybe not.
You know, so what is it that I just think that it's like a great there. I think they might structure. I just had this thought and I was like, if I don't get it out now, I'm going to forget.
Yeah, that's okay.
So, you know how at the end of Dragonfly and Amber, they had this whole big discovery about Jamie being alive or whatever. I think maybe they might format it somehow. Cause you know, we've been really noticing with these promos, how they've done lots of callbacks and like echoes to earlier
get
parts.
A lot of that.
So I think maybe they might find like somehow structure it so that it's kind of an echo of them finding out that Jamie was alive in Dragonfly and Amber somehow, maybe. But when you were talking about that, I was like, that, like finding out, like whenever they read the letter that says "we are alive," like I could see that being where they end, like them initially discovering and then like
and then picking up. That's what I'm thinking maybe too.
Yeah.
Then I think you see or it could be that, you know, it's concluded in that, and then in this episode, I think is where you really get into that time jump. That's why I'm leaning against it, because I thought the time jump was also coming into this. So maybe we do get the whole conversation in the other episode. But I think this is where we get the time jump, where they've been dealing with fixing Lollybrock for a while and living in the camper. Maybe we get a little bit of the contention, if they show it, of Roger and Bree, and him feeling not useful and her going for the job, that whole little
I
conversation.
kind of hope they don't show it.
Yeah, me too, because I don't want it to.
Like,
if
we're
they do, I hope
just-
they soften it.
We're just
somewhat.
getting the Max rehabilitated
Yes,
a little bit,
I
and
agree.
the last thing we need is a wrench in the works.
I
for
agree, but I'm
show
saying that's where that would
watchers.
fit. Is
Yeah,
what I mean.
I know. Yeah, I know.
So and I think the convo about from the trailer about Ian wanting to fight, I think comes into this episode. I think someone that helped Jamie is now pushing for his help. Saying, and I think that's who we heard on the trailer saying we need men in Ticonderoga. I think we also get William in the Dismal here. And I think that Ian must leave them for some reason and have to go on his own. And so when he does that, I think he runs into William. Now, here's where they're going to have to do more rehabilitation and retrofitting. They're going to have some kind of conversation between either Ian and Claire, or Ian and Jamie, where Ian acknowledges that he knows William is his son. We need to have that established, so that when he goes there, it becomes a thing that he reckons. It has to kind of be said because it was left out completely. And so you have to kind of have something where maybe it's something like, he says, I'm really torn about even being in this war and so forth. And maybe Ian says something like, yeah, and plus, you don't want to run into William, or something. And maybe he's looking, I'm like, what do you mean? And I saw his picture and whatever, some kind of a conversation that acknowledges where they both understand that they each know what William is, before he meets him in the Dismal, so that when he meets him in the Dismal, it's not unhurt, it's not completely new to him. And we know that he knows, I think we need to see that. So I think we're going to get something like that. And then we need to retrofit that he would somehow recognize him. So they're going to have to say he was around when they visited. They're going to have to kind of fill that in somehow. And we saw the rosary come into play last season.
Yeah, you said that. Because I've only watched season 6. I'm getting ready to start my rewatch, but remind me, where was the rosary involved in?
The rosary was involved in the Emily episode.
Okay.
Your least favorite.
Maybe I blocked it out.
When they were praying by the river or whatever,
yeah,
Jamie said, these were from your mother made me these, hold them, they'll bring you comfort or some crap like that. Because as soon as that happened, I'm like, they're retrofitting in the rosary. And they never mentioned the bear claw thing.
Oh yeah.
The bear thing. We never got that.
Right.
So I'm thinking that instead of the bear claw thing, it's going to be that Ian has the rosary and he gives it to William to give him, strength, or whatever. And when we see Rachel going to give it back to him, he might say, well, I tell him to keep it. It was from, because he knows who Mac is, and he would connect if he said my uncle, my uncle Fraser gave that, gave him that, he would know that man is Mac. And then he would connect the rosary with him being baptized by Mac if he remembers, which I think he will. And so I kind of feel like that they're kind of retrofitting the rosary back in to be able to have that scene at the end when they have the big moment, So that's what you kind of see that happening. So you see that. I think that's when we see that him getting through. I think we're going to get some really good character beats for I'm hoping we do, for William in that episode. And they get to the hunters. We meet the hunters. Ian gives the rosary. They kind of have little chemistry with Ian and Rachel. You kind of saw that in the trailers and pictures and stuff. And then Ian leaves, and then on the other side, so I think in the process we're going to see Rachel being an uncomfortable woman, like she's going to
Mhm.
basically get up in somebody's face, or she's going to do something, be bold and
Bold and
forward.
yeah,
Yeah,
forward and honest. Yeah, like
yeah, and blunt
yeah.
and stuff, you know.
Mhm.
So I kind of see we're going to get that. So she's going to be an uncomfortable woman, and I think we're either going to get the teacher thing either in this episode or the next, but I'm not sure, you know, because it seems like a lot already, you know, in there. But we might get that. And I think we're just going to see them getting used to life, you know, life at you know, what their situation is over there, and having to readjust and find their way.
Okay.
That's
You
kind of
think
what I see.
the Great Dismal and all of that's going to be in 704?
Yeah, I think the dismal, and then the arrival at the hunters, and the
Okay.
hunters um fixing William's arm, and Ian leaving the thing with him. And I think that, you know, in 5 is where, you know, you see Rachel say, you know, we're actually heading out. So I'm glad, you
Mhm.
know, like this is you know, if you know, uh whatever,
Yeah.
after he's healed, you know, it's a good,
Mhm.
you know, it's good that you're healed. I
Okay.
think that's what she says, you know, it's good that you're healed because we have to leave soon. And that's how it's going to become, that they leave in 5, you
Gotcha.
know, to
Okay.
go to, you know, the axe murderer people.
Yeah. I have all of the axe murderer stuff in 705 Singapore, the
Yes.
one that got everybody going. And I want you to explain your take on the title because I thought it was genius and I did not know what on earth that was about.
Yeah.
Um, but it's
Okay.
written by Taylor Mallory, who her biggest writing credit is Shadowhunters on Freeform. I've never watched it. I've heard of it, never seen it. But anyway, yes. So Singapore, what are your thoughts on that title?
Okay. So I think in Singapore is where, this is where I think we're going to get the tunnel bit, you know, with them locking Bree in the tunnel.
Okay.
These are all okay. Well, let me tell you what the thing of it is first.
Yeah.
So how I explained it in my thing was that I explained all the things I think are going to happen. And then I said, what do these things have in common?
Mhm.
And so the things I think are going to happen is the hunters and Rachel and the hunters and William are heading to wherever, you know, heading north, and they run into those people and they think it's just a rest stop, and it turns into this nightmare that where they almost get murdered and stuff. The Frasers head to Ticonderoga, you know, because they didn't get to go where they planned, and now they're going there. Bree at her job meets, I think this is where we get Rob Cameron, and she meets him and they lock her in the tunnel. So, you know, that happens. Um, and maybe the arrival of Buck, you know, is there, and he's not, he wasn't where he planned. So all of these things are, but he's not like showing up. He's just, we know he's there, you know. So all of these things involve people not being or going where they plan to, or in a situation they didn't expect, and the situation being odd or strange. So when you look at the origin of the word Singapore, it means Lion City, and that's one version of what the word means. But they believe that the origin of the word came from them when they saw the island. You know, they saw a large feline animal on the island, and they named it Singapore because that's what it means. But then they also looked back, they said that's an assumption. And when you look on the Singapore government's website, in the history section, it says, there is at least one other historic interpretation. This is found in 2 Portuguese sources published in the 16th century. In these works, the Portuguese authors explain that the name is translated from its original language into Portuguese as Falsa Demora, which means the wrong, tricky, or challenging place to interrupt one's voyage. The term has also been translated by a leading Portuguese historian 16th century literally as you arrive there and it is not what you expected. So all of those situations involve arriving somewhere and it not being what you expected. So I'm kind of thinking that's the theme of it. It would fit all of that. And it could include the teacher situation in this episode, because it would also fit that because Jem is having a problem adjusting because he's not in a place he expected to be. And now he's having to try to deal with the change of that and fit in, So that kind of fits this episode too. So it could be in either one of those, 4 or 5.
Yeah, I was kind of with 705 thinking this might be where if Roger has any internal struggle with adapting to life back in the 20th century, we might get that. Jemmy struggling to adapt with school and Principal Menzies and all of that in this episode. I put the Great Dismal in this episode, but I can totally see where you're at with it being in 704. Plus 705 seems really late to have it in.
Wait a minute. I can tell you it's definitely not that because we saw filming of in that piece that they did with the hunters, and I zeroed in on the clapper boards, and it was a 4 and a 5 in those episodes. So they do get to the hunters in 4, which means they already have done the dismal.
Right. Okay.
So they arrive at the hunters for sure in 4.
Okay. Yeah.
So the dismal has to take place in 4.
Yeah. Okay. I also had Jamie I put Jamie getting embroiled in the revolution in this episode because I think we might run into some major historical characters. I think we might get Benedict Arnold a little bit later in the show version than we did in the books, just because they announced who was playing it and made a big deal about it, and so they kind of made it seem like they expanded that role a little bit.
So you think we're getting him earlier is what you're saying?
Yeah, because
well, that would be anti-historical if he doesn't show up at Saratoga, if that's not where we get him.
I think he'll be at Saratoga.
No. Sure. I mean, if he comes earlier than that, because before Saratoga, he was involved in Canada and stuff. He came from that to Saratoga. So I don't think they're going to show him in Ticonderoga because he wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not debating. I'm just saying, that they'd have to do something anti-historical, and then everybody would get on their ass about that if they did that.
But also wouldn't be the first time they did
it wouldn't be the first time. Absolutely not.
Well,
Lord knows they care. They don't care if people get on their ass.
Anyway, so I had wondered about that. But I definitely think we're gonna get the crazy murderers on the roadside story in 705. And I thought if we get any Lord John stuff, we might see some of it here. I'm thinking that we're not really going to get very much Lord John in the first half of season 7.
Me neither.
But I think if we do, some of it might fall in this episode. But yeah, I think that, I don't know. I really feel like, because you were talking about how you think as far as like the path for Jamie and Claire getting off the ridge and like then kind of getting into the Ticonderoga mess. I don't know if I don't think they're going to have the intention of going back to Scotland right away like they did in the books. I'm just thinking,
I just don't think they're doing the ship thing, but I think they're intending to do that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But I just am trying to think of like, as a writer, how you would streamline stuff, because I know how much crap they're trying to cram in. So that was kind of like, I wonder if they're not even going to leave the ridge with that intent and just kind of nix that completely, was kind of my thought on it. But yeah, that's kind of what 705 was like I really have no idea. Like there were a couple of things.
And I also think in 705 is when they arrive at Ticonderoga, and everybody starts to reconnect, there, you get Ian gets there,
it's the nexus Jimmy Claire, of the first half of season 7.
I think that's when they open the letter. We might see them open the letter saying, it might be that or the beginning of the next episode that we see the Max get the letter. That's what I think. I think you're going to see them arrive, but I think maybe we don't see the letter until 6. I'm not sure, because that's the 6 is the main Ticonderoga episode, but I think they're going to set it up in 5, people all journeying there and stuff, Yeah.
Yeah.
And getting there and setting, so maybe starting to set up and stuff, and where the waters meet could be like the actual siege and the escape and the whole,
sure. All
the
of
things
that
with the people on the boats going out on the water, and all of that. So, because that's actually all the water scenes. It kind of would fit the title a little bit too, and maybe the bit with William and the tug of war with Claire. I think all that's in 6. So I think they need to kind of establish them in Ticonderoga a little bit in 5. And then 6 will be all of that action,
I agree. Yeah, I think that we're going to see the move up to Ticonderoga, them arriving at Ticonderoga and starting to like Jamie and Claire meeting the hunters, and like for me and my theories reuniting with Ian and like all of that stuff at Ticonderoga. And then in 706
and Ian seeing Rachel, and we get that scene where it looks like we're gonna get to spend more time together.
Right.
Yeah. So
all of that fun stuff. So
now,
that
Jude,
leads us
can I address the board for a second? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I wanted to address what Angie said too. So
Jude, the axe murdering thing is when the hunters and William are traveling north and they need to get shelter, and they get shelter from this couple that feeds them this nasty soup and plans to basically kill them and rob them. And they're farting and fighting at the same, in the book, they're farting and fighting at the same time. And basically William has to kill the guy, and it's his first time he kills somebody. And Rachel has to talk to him outside, and he's like, I haven't killed anybody yet. That's the first time. And I guess I'll, basically like something like, I'll get used to it or whatever. She says, no, you won't, or something. And so you have that whole scene, this interruption that these people were whack. And the lady has this weird forked tongue thing, and she licks each side of her face separately. And remember that? So we can come up with this shit.
Like, it's seriously how like, oh my God. Okay, Angie, yes, Lord John will be in that scene where Bree meets William, but I'm just saying, like, as far as any other point that he was involved in the plot in Echo, I don't think we're going to get much of that, is what I was saying. Okay, so that leads us to 706, which is where I start to get really freaking excited. 706,
and I think the back half's going to be
it's going to be
insanely
bonkers.
good.
Yes,
it's going to be insanely good. This is, I think, where we're really going to ramp up.
Yep. So
not that where I think the whole thing's going to be ramped up, but I think this is where the military and
the revolution
really
kick in. So 706 is where the waters meet, written by Sarah H. Haught, and I'm really excited about her credits. So
okay, good.
Both,
because there's a lot of technical stuff happening in this episode, so you need somebody. And we did see that is Ticonderoga, that place that you guys didn't want it to be.
It's so fucking stupid.
Maybe they CGI things with it.
God, I hope
like little battlements and stuff around that to make it look a little more like a fort. You know what I mean?
I'm trying not to let that like.
Yeah, but something, this happens with everybody working. I'm going to probably bitch about the Philadelphia scenes not looking like, I remember hearing Blake bitch that when they were supposed to be in Boston and Harvard and stuff, it doesn't look anything. We don't have cloisters at Harvard, all of this stuff. So, everybody's going to feel like that when it's their town and their area or something they've seen in person. So they can't.
I've never seen Ticonderoga in person, but I've seen hella pictures, and I
I thought you had been there, so that's why you're so like adamant about it.
Nope, it's just the fact that it's not even close. It's like they didn't even try. I feel like is how I felt whenever I saw that, because I'm a person that's been to Scotland several times and know that they have places that they could have filmed that were.
Oh my God, the stone is ridiculous in Scotland.
Right. So that's why I'm like, that's what pissed me off. Like, it's not even, I feel like they didn't.
And it's not like they couldn't like investigate what it looked like. There's a billion pictures.
Yeah. Google it. Google it. Seriously. Anyway, so I'm getting mad, and I'm trying not to get mad, but it really bugged me.
I'm thinking that there might be CGI mixed in with what we saw as the site.
Yeah.
I'm thinking they might CGI extra like fortification looking stuff around it, you know what I mean, to make it look more like it, and just kind of have.
I was looking at like the inside, and it does look like there are little buildings and trees and stuff growing inside, and I'm like, okay, well, if you can go that far with it, like, I don't know, I just felt like it was lazy, I guess. And I know we're spoiled on Outlander and like the quality of stuff that we get, but I just feel like, come on now, like, come on. Try a little harder, like a little harder.
Got like stone out the giggy out there, and fortresses and all kinds of crap.
You literally could throw something and find a building closer to Ticonderoga than what you ended up. I think
they wanted that whole big fort feel, that whole like space of different little towers and all that's kind of a setup. But we'll see. Maybe they'll CGI things in and it'll look better. Look what they did with the harbor. With they changed that all up and made it look more.
And like I said, I haven't been to Ticonderoga, but from pictures I've seen, it looks a lot like Black Nest Castle, which is where they filmed Fort William. Like they look a lot alike, I think, personally. So I don't know. We'll get off the soapbox. I could be here all day. Anyway, so Sarah H. Haught's credits are, these are just the two that really stood out to me. Bull, the network show on, I think it was ABC, that's like about jury selection and like the psychology behind that. It's a very interesting show.
I never saw that one. That's the guy from
NCIS.
Yes.
Yeah. So she wrote for that show, and The Last Ship, which is probably one of my favorite shows ever. It's like really cool.
I never saw that one either.
Yeah, it's a TNT show with Eric Dane in it, and it's really good too. So I was like, ooh, two good shows. So anyway, yeah. Ticonderoga, faux show, mark me. Ticonderoga and everything that ensues afterward. I think
the river escape scene, the Claire with William Guard and her, the tug of war thing, all of that stuff.
I think we're also, well, I really hope so, getting the sexy time in the garden, because that was like one of my favorite sex scenes of the entire series. So if they don't have that in there, I'm gonna be sad. Like that's one of, I'm trying not to like be like, if that's not in there, I'm gonna be mad. But like, and I'm not really going to be mad if it's not in there, but like, I'm going to be a little sad, I guess.
And on the Mac side, what do you see on the Mac side? Do you think?
I think that
because I do think Singapore, now we're going to get a little bit of each one in each story, in each episode. I kind of do think they're doing that now.
I think that we're going to get a little bit, but I think that it's going to be a very heavy on the 18th century side. Yeah. And not just Fraser's. Like, I think we're going to get a lot with Ian, a lot with William, a lot with Jamie and Claire. So I think we're only going to get like little snippets. But I'm not really sure, to be honest, what I see for the Mac side on this. My plot points were very 18th century oriented for this one.
Yeah, Jude, that's going to happen in the second half, hon. She said, when do you think both of you will William come in and realize he's Jamie's son?
Oh yeah,
definitely. That's a second half, because that's after they come back from Scotland, and we're only going to get to them sailing off to Scotland.
I think
in the first half,
maybe like 7-11, 7-12, maybe. I don't know, because we're 9, 10, 12 maybe.
No, because they head to Monmouth, and they're at Monmouth in
14.
So right. That makes sense. Yeah, 12 and 13. I'm hoping we get Hal in the second half, and that's why we haven't heard much.
Yeah, I hope that we get
and Dottie.
Yeah, Dottie and Hal.
I'm kind of feeling like they're waiting. I said this yesterday, if anybody was there. I kind of feel like they're waiting until the break to have things to say as the show's starting back up. We're going to welcome this person and that person in the role of this and that, to kind of go, we are getting them, and, like that type of a thing. I think they want to have something new to say, to reignite things for the second half. I mean, beyond the regular reigniting of, oh, it's coming back. Yeah. I think they want to show you some new thing you didn't know that's happening, or people or cast or something. And so I think that's where we're going to get news that, we have Hal and we have Donnie, and hopefully I'm hoping,
Fingers crossed.
especially if they really spend some time to get us to
Yeah.
love Denny. People are going to want him to have somebody too,
Exactly. Right.
especially with Rachel leaving, like, and what poor Denny will have nobody, I got nobody. Nobody cares for me.
So what are you thinking Mac wise for this episode?
What did I have? I think this is where in 5 or no, yeah, 6. I think that's when I think for sure that's when we get the letter and them talking about it and then looking it up and then realizing they're going to be still there. If they have like a set time period that they're there or whatever. If the timing of it, they're going to realize they're going to be there when they have to flee and start to kind of freak out a little bit about that. I think we're going to start seeing more signs of Buck around.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know if he's going to make his appearance yet. They might do that, but I don't think so. We're going to start maybe getting the interaction of the guy offering him the chance to teach in Gaelic. That might all happen in there somehow. Maybe,
Okay. See, I'm kind of thinking that we might get like a couple scenes, but I really think that Where the Waters Meet and Turning Points are very 18th century, and then the Practical Guide for Time Travelers is mostly the Max. Is kind of where I'm leaning.
That's what I had originally thought too, but I don't think we're going to be totally not see them at all. Let's put it that way.
I think
we're going to get a couple little scenes because I think they're going to want to keep all
keep
4
the finger
points
on the pulse.
I think they're going to want to keep all 4 points of the caltrop, so to speak, involved in each episode to kind of in some way, shape, or form.
That was one of the what am I trying to say? Like one of the drawbacks or like fault points of season 4, I felt like, is we lost touch between where we left Roger and Bree in season 3 and then we picked back up. Like it was too much. So I think it's very important to keep the finger on the pulse of what's happening, even if it's just a couple scenes here and there.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so I agree. I think
we need to get to know the kids. I think they need to spend a little time, because if we are worried about Jem, I think we need to care and get to know him a little, this new kid of Jem and the kids. So I think we're just going to get a scene or two in there for them, just to kind of touch base. One of them seeing what the parents are dealing with and realizing they're going to be caught up in this whole thing. And maybe, some other aspect, maybe another little scene of work or something. Or maybe that's where we see the scene with that. Could also be where they put the scene in with the kid, with Jemmy and the run-in with the teacher. It could be there because it's a time traveler issue. So they could stick it in that. That's one of those things that could fit in 3 different episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's some aspect. She was an uncomfortable woman, so it could fit there. It could fit in the next one because Jemmy's kind of in a place that doesn't fit him. And now it could fit in this one because what did I say? Because it's like another thing of getting to know him and the struggles he's dealing with, and Roger trying to, talk to him. We get to see Roger daddy mode. I think we need to see like the love in between the parents and the kids, and how invested Roger is with Jem, and how, all of that stuff, Yeah,
because I feel like if we don't get that, it's not as much of an emotional decision that they like instantaneously are like, okay, well, we're going through the stones after him at the end of like in 708. I just, yeah.
And I
I
think
feel like it's important to show those bonds. I agree.
it might be too that at the very end we get the buck shows up, like
You
maybe
think at the
Jamie,
end of 706?
possibly, and then
Okay.
they're dealing with it in 7,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
that's part of what they're dealing with, in 7. It could be that.
Could be.
I mean, could be, that, like he's out there working on the Brock or something, I don't know if they're getting into the whole fort thing, but it may be, but he's out there working on something, and Buck just shows up and says, "You're a minister. I need,
Yeah.
sanctuary," or some whatever he says.
Right.
And I think, Roger's going to be like, and,
Yeah.
so they might do that.
Mhm.
And then just end it so that the next thing, a practical guide for time traveler, deals with all the time travel
Yeah.
issues,
It could.
and that would be including Buck.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or
I'm
he
trying to
comes in
think
it,
of
or he
like,
comes in 7, or he comes in episode 7, one of the two. But
yeah.
I was thinking that would be another little thing they could do to kick in
Yeah.
to episode 7.
I'm trying to think, like, metaphorically speaking, when you're talking about where the waters meet, like different threads that could seem like not connected at all with the Max storyline kind of coming together. And like, so I've been trying to think of, like, I don't know how that could come into it on their side, because one thing that Outlander is really good about, and also, Diana, is like making things, especially like chapter titles or episode titles, seemingly unrelated,
like a double
actually be
meaning.
related. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So
yeah, that's what like where the waters meet is where different things are coming together that,
yes,
make
right.
make a merge.
Yeah, because it's a
So
literal translation of Ticonderoga, but
right.
also like all the other crap that happens too.
Yeah, we're definitely getting an older Jemmy for sure.
Yes.
They've moved those kids because the kids stopped filming, all of that stuff. So I definitely think they do that. And I
Thank
think that's why
God.
they do the time jump, because I think they're camped for like the whole, I think we do a period of time. Once that we know they're going to buy Lollybrock, I think we do a period time jump 2 years forward. And then we see that they've been living in this camper, they've been cleaning things up, and now Lollybrock is starting to look like something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they jump over into that.
They could do a little thing where, they decide when in the first episode that we get, maybe at the end or the beginning of 703 or whatever, still with the original Jemmies and all of that, like meeting with,
I definitely think we're going to see them in the 703 episode, the original kids.
Yeah. In the book, Bree meets with the guy that it's like he's like a contractor, but I still think we're relatively going to get that scene with showing Lollybrock as like dilapidated and stuff, and like talking about it or whatever. And then we may not see them for an episode, maybe, and then might happen at the end of one episode, and then at the end of the next episode we do a time jump or something like that. Yeah. So as for the 18th century story for 706, we talked about like actual Ticonderoga happening, but I also think that a couple of my like favorite scenes from Echo are going to be in this one, with Claire meeting William and the whole tug of war between Ian and William.
We're definitely getting that, because we saw the behind the scenes filming of that.
Yeah.
So, which I'm happy that we're doing.
I really want to see the scene where Claire asked that guy, like, well, how'd you know who I was? And he said, oh, well, you're the whatever, how he describes
the curly
her.
wig, bossing everybody around or whatever.
Like a sergeant or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to
being an uncomfortable woman.
Yeah, I just
you could really call any Outlander episode an
uncomfortable woman. For sure.
Because she's always going to be like that.
And it also looks like we're going to follow Jamie and Ian a little bit through that as well, their side of it, because we see William with Ian and he's like, Uncle, I can do this. And they're all wearing the same costumes as like when at the very beginning of the trailer, we see Jamie saying goodbye to Claire, which is, I think, where they separate after the whole boat escape or whatever, and she wants to stay with the wounded. And then we see also Jamie with the flaming bow and arrow in the same outfit. And then the scene where Ian and Jamie are hiding in the woods and Ian's like, let me do this. Like, I want to do this. Like, that's
where
all
he
there
goes
together.
and
Yeah,
he
to
goes
save
like,
Claire.
to save Claire. Okay, because I had originally, when I saw that, thought it was them doing Denny with the arrow and stuff, but you think that's going to be Claire?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and they're not going to do the Denny one.
Yeah, as sad as I am about that, because that was good, but I think it's all going to be Claire.
I think it is really cute. I love when Denny's like, I know that he doesn't want to, and if you really feel bad about it, then I will like gladly like die, or whatever. And William's just looking at him like, yeah, like I'm gonna let you die, if you saved me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was just so cute.
I guess
and then William says to him, we're quits now, in that scene.
If I see you again.
If I see you again, I can't help you, type of thing. So there is a little bit of that there too. So I kind of like that. But but that's like in the Saratoga stuff. That would be in the next thing.
Yeah.
So that would be after he already helped him once with Claire. And then he tries to do it with Denny and he says, I'm helping you now, but don't let me see you again. I can't help you again.
Right.
And so I don't know. I don't know if they'll get both of them in or not.
It just seems like a lot of stuff to try to fit into the first half. And
especially when that would be almost one after the other. It would be like rescues twice,
Right. Yeah. Within like an episode of each other, which I mean, I guess would be fresh.
Yeah, it would feel repetitive.
It would be repetitive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I do think they're going to want to touch the deserter game because that's the deserter game aspect of it, and the spying and stuff.
Do you think that they could push that to the second half of season 7, like, and have that possibly be combined with some of the Monmouth
in
stuff?
Moby? Like the Monmouth stuff.
Yeah.
It could be. It could be.
It could be a cool way to tie in the two halves of the season, like draw some connections there.
Mm-hmm.
Could be. Anyway, okay. Did you have anything else for 706?
Just that they have the river escape scene.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, she said it was a big scene, like, and you saw it actually in the thing with what's her face helping the lady out of the boat.
Rachel,
helping the lady out of the boat. So yeah, they have all that,
it looks like
that takes time, I mean, it's, but then again, I say that, but knowing them, they're probably going to be like, ding, 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 ding. And like the whole thing happens.
The whole thing happens in like 2 minutes. Yeah, exactly.
So, we're thinking,
something
gosh, they got
like
we keep thinking you got to play the time of the rowing down the river. And so like, I always think it's going to take longer than what it does in the show. And I'm always kind of like, my head's spinning because the things are moving so fast. I'm so used to like the pace of the books.
I know. Well, I think that really speaks to the production value of this show, that like something that only takes a couple of minutes on screen takes a lot of money and time and energy and coordination. And like that probably took a whole day, if not more, to film something that's only on screen for a couple minutes. So that's kind of crazy when you think about it. All right. 707, A Practical Guide for Time Travelers, written by Margot Yee. No notable credits for her either on IMDb. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Interesting, as that's like the mid-season penultimate thing. But do you want to talk on it first?
Yeah, I can. I think this is going to be a very heavy Mac episode. I think that we're going to get obviously the development of the Practical Guide for Time Travelers. But I also think this is where Buck is going to come into the picture. I think he's going to make himself known. We're going to get a lot of like his bonding, not only with Bree and Roger and like making amends for everything that happened at Alamance. But we're also going to kind of get that relationship with him and the kids, because I mean, it's really
definitely
sad
a lot of
that like
Buck,
he
I
like
think, for sure.
fell through the stones and is separated from his gem, so we'll see all of that, I think. And a couple other things, I think that we'll also get the scene in the graveyard between Jim and Bree and Mandy. or like up on the hill, and she was like, do you see Granda? And he was like, no, but Mandy does.
Yeah, they got to start putting
Yeah.
in the pieces. They already started a little bit in the end of last season.
Mhm.
But they got to start putting, or no, they didn't. No, never mind. I'm thinking of something else. But they got to start laying in pieces that show the kids' connection.
Yes.
And their little superpowers and stuff.
Yes.
So we got to see things like that, of them talking about, I think that's also a thing we're going to see in the earlier episodes is the little stuff where Buck's there, but he hasn't made himself known yet, but things are happening, like crap is being,
The clock
taken,
dismantled in
the window, and Mandy throwing it, all of that stuff where, there's unexplainable things happening. You know what I mean? That's got to happen in those earlier episodes before we get to this episode.
Right.
Before he's revealed, so those are other little things we're going to see too.
Yes. So my hot take for this one, and I'm not completely sold on this, but it is a theory that I have. It very well could be the end of the Max story for this half of the season.
I don't
could
think so.
be. I mean, I originally was thinking that yes, they could like filter in and like go back and forth between the Max and the 18th century for 708. But the more that I'm looking at like all the crap that has to happen in that 708 episode, I'm almost wondering if maybe they're going to have 707 be a Mac episode and 708 be.
That's what I originally thought, but
else.
now I don't think that. But
you don't.
But I used to think that. So I can understand why you think that. And I could it could be,
Yeah. But I do think that there's room in that 707 episode to lay some of the groundwork for the stuff that's going to happen at Saratoga. I think we likely might get some of the bond starting to form between General Fraser and William.
I have that too.
I think we'll get the meeting, or Jamie and Claire meeting Dan Morgan and Benedict Arnold.
I have that too. I have that too.
So I think that all of that stuff is likely to happen in a practical guide for time travelers. But regardless, I mean, even if it's not the end of the story for the Max for 707, I think the majority of the stuff is going to happen in 707. And then we might get some cliffhangery stuff happen in 708. But I think that 708 is very heavy on the 18th century stuff. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, Veronica. Thank you. When they did the thing where he talked to the baby in her stomach. And said, I love you, baby, or whatever. Even though it seems like just nothing, I kind of feel like it's laying a little bit of thing that he feels connected to that child before it's even born, Anyway.
It was cute. It was
so yeah, cute. It was adorable.
Oh, yeah.
And he played that well.
I know.
I love you, baby.
I love you, baby. Yeah.
So I have where for the practical guide for time travelers, I said where we get Cameron at the lodge and him getting the book and all of that kind of stuff, the Gallic lesson. If it hasn't already happened yet, Buck makes himself known, which I already do think that's happened yet at this point. All that convo happens, Bree running into Rob and Buck not trusting him, Rob returning the book, making a plan that, how about if I take Jemmy to the movies, next week, this weekend with whatever, Bobby or whatever the hell his name is, little kid. So I think we're going to end on that note of him making that plan to set up the next thing. And them talking to Buck to try to like figure out what to do with him. On the Fraser side, I think they arrive at Saratoga. I think there's a lot I think that Saratoga is a big chunk of story. So I think on the Fraser side, we are going to get a little bit of them arriving at Saratoga and meeting Pop Benny, because Claire has an internal crisis about time travel when she meets Benedict Arnold. She kind of wonders what she should say. She knows things about him. She tells Jamie. She struggles with that. So I kind of feel like that's kind of the idea of what do I do as a time traveler? What's the right thing to do mentality, and it would fit there. I think we're going to get the Jamie connection with Morgan, him being enlisted by Morgan, and the whole scene with Morgan taking off his shirt, that whole bit, because that's going to be a great callback to Jamie's thing. So I think we're going to get bits. I don't think it's going to be all Mac, but I do think we're going to get, but all of the bits we get are going to involve, I think, either callbacks in time to their own story, like this whole thing with the thing with Morgan, reminding you of what happened with Jamie, and Jamie, like maybe even Jamie, when he sees it, remembering when Dougal did that to him to make a statement and make a show, and kind of smiling to himself like, I got you, dude. I know what you're doing, that kind of thing, So I kind of see that being in that episode. And they do have, actually, there's 2 battles of Saratoga. So they could have the first little skirmish that happens in this one as well, maybe. But then I think the major part, and also the bit with William connecting with General Fraser and making a connection with him. I think we'll see that in this episode, because I think 8 is going to be like the major battle of Saratoga, the bit with the hat and all that other stuff that happens. So I think all of the intro and laying all the groundwork of that is going to be happening on the Fraser side in episode 7.
Yeah, I think, we're on the same page with that. I think that there'll be a few little things, but the focus, I think, will probably be on the Max. So 708, the part A finale of season 7 is Turning Points, written by...
and I do think also, before you get into it, I do think also that you're going to get a lot of dialogue straight from the book. I think that, because Diana has said that, like that they did take a lot, they stripped a lot of dialogue out of the book, even though it seems like it's all happening fast. They did manage to include, she said, a lot of the stuff that's straight from the book in there, even though it's jumping in, so it kind of makes me feel good, because maybe they've learned that that's a good thing to do.
I know, right?
Like,
One can help.
She writes good dialogue. Don't try to, reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? When a wheel is already rolling very nicely.
Why you got to ruin a good thing?
It ain't broken, don't fix it. It's like, so,
sure.
But I do think that's one positive I'm getting a vibe of, is that they, and I do have a little piece of beat. I don't know if you've heard it already from you listening to my other things, because I haven't mentioned it. On 8, I'm saying, so I'll wait till you're ready to do 8.
Yeah, so 708, Turning Points, written by Luke Skelhaus. So when I first heard that he wrote this, I was like,
mixed.
Because he's written Wilmington, the Deep Hearts Core.
I always love half of his episode and hate the other half of it. Usually that's how it is.
Yeah, Free Will, Hour of the Wolf, and I Am Not Alone. So out of those, loved Wilmington. Was only I liked parts of the Deep Hearts Core, but for the most part didn't care for it.
I like parts of the Deep Hearts Core. I like parts of Wilmington. I didn't like the Murtaugh parts.
Between Two Fires, did not care for. Free Will, depends on what day I watch it. Hour of the Wolf, no. And I Am Not Alone, loved. So I'm just like, but rave reviews from all the powers that be on this episode. So I'm going into it very, 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 very optimistic.
I am too. I think, because this is actually going to air when we're all in England for Highlanders. And I think we're all going to be very happy campers as we watch this episode, because Diana has raved about, everybody that has seen it and talked about it. And I'm saying everybody, it's like 2 people, but still. That's all we got to go on. But the 2 people are people that one has a very objective view, and is the Raul guy. And he said it was absolutely, Raul is the guy that dubs the Brazilian, does the Portuguese for the Spanish speaking thing. So he's basically has to watch the lock cut of everything and then dub over it, and so he said, like, episode 8 was unbelievably great. unbelievably great. He said it's fantastic. I can't speak to everything else, but he said episode 8 is worth it in gold, like, basically. And Diana has like raved. I've seen her rave about that episode 4 separate times.
Yeah.
Raved, so that tells
she
me
doesn't rave about
and
stuff.
she doesn't rave easily. Yeah, she doesn't rave easily. She just loves it. She says everything's really from the book, and she says all the moments are the way that I meant the moments, like, she's very, very positive, on it. So that makes me feel good.
To be so gratifying
it
as
does,
a writer,
especially for her when she's seen them butcher things in the past.
Like, I just think about, as a writer myself, like, if I ever had something that the rights were purchased to and they just absolutely ruined it, like, that would just take a part of my soul.
It would me too. It would me too.
And she's watched that happen sometimes. I mean, overall, Outlander is a very good adaptation to
this is 25 years of her life.
Exactly.
Over 25 years of her life, 30 years of her life invested in this series, half her life. So, I mean, it's like, these people that just like want to just diss her, like she has no, the book is the book and the show is the show, and
it's mine. Whatever. Like, it came from my brain. Like,
like these are my characters. Yeah, exactly. I would not, I mean, I don't want to expect it. Like I said, I don't expect that. I do the adaptation chats and stuff, and so I talk about that, and I don't expect it. I'm not one of these people that's such a hardliner that I expect everything to like walk, talk, chew gum like the books. You know what I mean? That's not realistic.
Yeah, right.
They have to adapt, but I expect the adaptation to still reflect the characters and reflect the spirit of the story, not create a new story, create new characters that, because you think you can make it different and you want to make it your own and all. It's not your own, so stop. You shouldn't sign up to be a writer for an adaptation if you're not willing to adapt. You know what I mean? You should be willing to keep the spirit of what you're adapting. If you're signing on, what you're getting into. It's not like a surprise. You get in and they go, oh, by the way, you need to try to stick close to what this story is actually supposed to be about. It's not like they find this out, then they go, oh shit, well, then I'm not doing it.
Right.
So
So I guess my question, because we've definitely heard rave reviews about this 708. Have we heard any good things about any other episode? Because that's what makes me nervous, that like 708 is like the episode. And then we have heard diddly squat about everything else.
Well, I just think it's because it's the climactic, it's where the big battles are happening. Because in Ticonderoga, it's retreating. There's not really that whole, thing.
The most exciting part of the Ticonderoga crap is Claire's story after Ticonderoga and like all the character stuff that happens there.
Yeah, it's not really like a big fight like you have in Saratoga, and so there's a lot of big things happening. I just think it's where it's like that epic movie type of scene, where you're getting like this whole, battle of the battle of the bastards and, in Game of Thrones or whatever, where it's like this big, triumphant thing. So it's going to create this epic vibe, plus they need it to be like a mid-season finale. So it has to feel a little bit finale-ish, So what I have on it, you want me to go first this time?
Yeah, you can go. That's fine. I think we basically have all the same stuff. So
well, you don't have as much. You think that the Mac stuff's going to conclude in the previous thing, and I don't. So I think
it's a theory of mine.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, on my outline, I have at the very last thing on my outline is Jimmy kidnapped Roger and Buck go back.
Right. That's what I have too.
At the end,
I have on the Fraser side, the Battle of Saratoga, General Fraser's bedside scene, interaction with Willie, Jamie seeing him and, shooting him in the hat, trying to avoid General Fraser, bordering the ship to, the thing with the hand, Claire doing the warrior princess thing on the field, the
I
bit
have
with
thoughts on this.
The bit with the hand. I'm not sure what they're doing to their hand, but they're doing something to it because they have that scene in there, according to Raul. There's the scene in there where he says the bit about, remember the scene in the Bible where they make a bargain, and Abraham or whoever, bargains him down. If will you take 50, will you take 10, and he keeps him down to one. And he said, do you think one is worth a finger? Yeah. He says that line, and Raul will confirm that. So I don't know if that means that it's mangled or he's going to get it amputated. He did say also he's being fit for a prosthetic. So I don't know what that means, but something involving that is going to be in the episode. Something is going to happen to the hand. And we do see scene with him wearing a brace, but I counted the fingers. All the fingers look like they were there in the brace.
Yep. Same.
So something happens. I just don't know what. And we only saw kind of to the top of his fingers like that. So maybe like the tip is cut, off, because maybe that's why that's what I saw. I didn't see like this parts of his finger. I think we just saw this part of his finger. It could be that maybe he loses the tip or something.
Yeah. So I have thoughts on it. So I was thinking, because we see that brace a couple of times over the course of all the promo material that they've released. He has all of his fingers every single time we see the brace. So I'm wondering, my initial impression was that it was after Saratoga that we were seeing stuff, but then I saw one where it looked like pre-battle he was wearing the brace. So I'm wondering if they're again retrofitting, and he later on something happens and he starts having issues with his hand, like because he is getting older and maybe it's getting really stiff and hard to work or whatever. So Claire's got him wearing this brace. And then in Saratoga, he gets his hand basically half chopped off and she has to take it anyway. Maybe because, that whole conversation is like, it's been bugging me for years anyway, just take it off. That doesn't fit now because he's had normal function of his hand for 20 years, 25 years at this point, with the show version of events. So that's kind of where I'm thinking they might be retrofitting, and that might be the brace that we're seeing is my theory.
You vamp for a second because I want to just check one thing.
Okay. So
do we think we're going to see I just happened to see it here. That's why I'm asking. Do you think we're going to oh, you know what? Never mind. That's later. So,
Claire with the like fending off the scavengers, like we had to know that was going to be in there. Like
absolutely.
From the second that I read that, I was like, if they get far enough to get to this material, that will 100% be in there, because you can't not have like Claire Fraser warrior princess scene. Like they just can't resist it. So that did not surprise me whenever pictures started to leak of that being in there at all. And then I'm really excited for the dual hat scenes. So we get the bookend there with Jamie accidentally shooting the hat off William's head and then him giving him his hat in his stead, which I'm like so excited for. I'm excited for that scene. Like, because that I'm pretty sure that'll be the first scene that, unless they filmed out of order, that'll be the first scene that Sam and Charles did together. Right?
Yeah.
So that'll be,
I mean, he'll be seeing,
like, that'll be the first time we see them, unless they somehow do some sort of fancy camera work with the Wilmington stuff. That'll be the first time that we see them in frame together. So I think I'm really excited for that, honestly. I'm so excited for this season, period. Yeah, I think that's basically all the stuff that I have on my list. I mean, I think we'll get maybe a little bit more bonding between Fraser and William in the lead up to the battle, because it's not, if they don't do that, it's not really going to fit like William's emotional
what I thought it was.
What?
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I had to just double check what I thought. There's 2 battles in Saratoga, and he actually hurts his hand in the first battle.
Okay.
And the second battle is where we get the hat shooting off and everything. So he would be going into, if they do it by the book, he would actually have hurt his hand before heading into a battle for the second battle where he ends up having the hat shooting off thing. He's
Okay.
already hurt his hand at that point and wearing a
Okay.
brace. So it could be that they still are doing it. I
could
thought that, I thought it was already done by the time he went into that battle, but I wanted to just double check it. So
What happens? Because Claire, whenever they do the surgery or whatever, I distinctly remember a moment when Claire was like, Jamie wouldn't be fighting.
Anita just said the same thing. I
because
see. You could have seen me
Yeah.
looking it up, Anita. I just wanted to verify before I said it, because I thought maybe I'm confusing that and I'm wrong, but I knew there was something. So I think that's what happened.
Because Claire, I was just thinking, I was like, I remember Claire like being in Claire's head and her saying like, yeah, there would be a second battle or whatever, but that Jamie wouldn't be fighting because he was injured or whatever. So what transpires there to like not have that happen? I can't remember. Something happens.
And he just kind of, because
just like
he was actually glad because he's in the rifleman, he wouldn't be in the mix. He would be in the trees or whatever, in the distant from the field as a sharpshooter, like not in the mix of the thing. And that's what she was glad about, that he wouldn't be involved in that, anymore, like on hand. But yeah, so I think we get that. And then we get the whole bit with the actual second battle, the hat, the bedside. And also I think we're going to get some nice scene between William and Fraser again in there. I think they want to develop that he would feel emotional over it.
Yeah. They have to, because it's not going to make sense on an emotional level, like why William is so upset about this guy dying if they don't include that. Like, because honestly, like I kind of viewed Fraser as like a father substitute in a lot of ways. Like he doesn't have John, he doesn't have Hal, he doesn't have any of these men. It's the one bright
thing. I almost feel like it's the one bright thing that
when he finds out that he's Jamie's son,
when he goes, he sees when they go to rescue Jane or whatever, and he sees his hand, and he said Saratoga, that happened in Saratoga or whatever, and then he all of a sudden William goes, General Fraser, like he realizes where that's all connecting, and he says, my kin, yours too, and I think that almost like he almost is happy about that, like wow, like he was my family, so I kind of, because he had such admiration for him and stuff. So I kind of hope they work that in, because that was really special. And if they're going to go through the whole thing of them taking General Fraser to be buried and all the stuff about him, I think they're going to want to, show that a little bit too. So anyway, so Diana said that scene plays out just like the book. She was so thrilled with that scene, so thrilled with that scene. And, Sam was like, really knew it was important and he wanted to get it right. He actually contacted Diana and said, was it really good? Were you really happy with it? Because, I've been really nervous about this scene. I want it to be right, and she's like, oh, it was right. She's like, it was right.
Oh, good.
So he's like, oh, good. Because I felt like I wasn't sure how it went, so she's like, no, it was really good. And I think on the Mac side, I think it's when we see Jem kidnapped and believed to be going through the stones. Roger and Buck rush to follow them stones, follow them, go try to catch them, sees that the truck is there, and then they have to make a plan. And I think we see them go through the stones, but we don't maybe see where they go. Or it's either going to be one or two things. Either we see them go through the stones, but then we don't know anything after that as far as their story goes, or we see them arrive and somehow realize something's not right, in the arrival. Or maybe they arrive and say, let's start at Lollybrock, and they get I don't know if they're going to go that far, but they could, and him open the door to see Brian and go, oh crap, like, why is Brian here? So I don't know if that's going to happen yet or not. My feeling is they're just going to show, because it's too much to happen. Already all this stuff's happening with this. I don't have time for that. So I really think it's just going to be, they go through the stones. And then I think we're going to get that. I think in this season, we're going to see in this half that Jem is not actually in the stones. We're going to get the scene where she comes like back and sees Rob ends up being in the thing and be like, hi, Hen. And she's like, what are you doing here? Where's my son? He's safe. And then you like start to realize, oh crap.
Shit. Yeah.
Like they're that like you basically got rid of them so that you could come to Bray, And he's like, yeah, you're gonna get to see now what it is to not be the boss, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see that being the cliffhanger on the Max story, where you don't know what, and then it's going to open with him approach the further fight and Roger, realizing they're not where they're supposed to be. That's going to all be in the second half. Yeah. So that's kind of how I see the cliffhanger for them.
I wonder.
And then we're going to for the Max, it's going to be them sailing off to
the Frasers,
sailing off. Yeah, Frasers. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Frasers.
Yeah.
And we're going to see for William him being put in convention army and basically.
Yep. So
making his way back home to Philadelphia.
So when 709 opens up, you've got William arriving in Philadelphia. You've got the Frasers arriving in Scotland. You've got the continuation of what's going on with the Max. And I wondered if creatively they're going to structure Roger and Buck being in Scotland simultaneously, like cutting back and forth with Jamie and Claire and Ian being in Scotland. So you're like,
they're going to do that.
Are they going to run into each other?
You're going to see you're going to see Lollybrock, old Lollybrock,
knocking on the door,
and then phase into the present Lollybrock. Present meaning, in timey-wimey thing, present for the Frasers, with older Jenny and all that stuff. I think you're going to like see the room, and then they're going to like phase in, like a different scene, and you're going to have it come out and it's going to be them there. I think they're going to take advantage of those things being around in the same episode. Plus it's for filming. They would put them in the same episode,
Yeah. I'm wondering if they'll have like Jamie and Claire arrive at Lollybrock, kind of do the head fake of they don't know really what time Roger and Buck don't know what time they're there. So Jamie and Claire are going to be at Lollybrock, and then Roger and Buck show up. And you're like, oh, is Jamie going to answer the door? Like, what's going to happen?
That would be great. I like that idea. Yeah. And when the door opens, it's Brian. I love that. Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. So
I hope that, the dogs are starting attacking Jane. Roger's just like, get your gosh. I do have. Did you hear my little story that Diana told about? I know that we're only doing the first yet, but I just wanted to tell you the story about what happens in near the end with Monmouth. Did you hear me tell that story about no?
No.
That when Claire's shot and he says Denzel Washington.
Yeah,
Denzel Washington. And she says that is like either the last episode or second to the last episode that that scene happens. So I really do think we're ending with the surgery of Claire, knowing she's going to be okay, and maybe seeing William bring back Ian and them look out the window at each other or something like that.
Yeah, Jamie and William make eye contact and just kind of nod at each other and then along their way. Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking is going to kind of be the finale, but and then meanwhile, the thing with the girls, that's going to kind of be involved in the second half too, because they're bringing them in,
Yeah. So I remember a while ago, we have a little bit of time. So I'll, a while ago, I told you that I had a theory on why, they were cramming so much into this season with 10 episodes left for season 8. And I part of me thinks that they might rework. And I know, like you said last night, that initially speaking, they approached Diana about how she thought it would put a nice bow on it to wrap things up in the episodes that they had left. And they liked her idea. So I don't know if this is anywhere close, but I had a thought that perhaps as Roger and Bree are coming back, since they have so much of their story included in this season, like most of their book 8 story is in this season. I'm wondering,
I'm really worried about that.
Well, I'm wondering if somehow they're not going to encounter John and William before they return to the Ridge. And so we get all of that encounter between Bree and Willie that we get in book 9 in, what is it, Savannah? Charleston, Savannah. one of those cities.
Savannah.
Yeah. I'm just like wondering if that's how they're going to maybe get some closure on that, like William's storyline, because, you know, I'm just wondering if they're going to merge that a little bit. Like, obviously not the historical bits.
Yeah,
but
they're going to have to tone down how freaked out he is for so long, because they're going to have to get him in a better place by the end of the whole
by
thing.
the end of the show.
They have to get them, you know, to somewhat be okay, you know.
And I really think that it would be like tragic to not have any scenes between him and Bree where they like can acknowledge
that their brother and sister
is. Right.
I picture, you know, at the end, after Bree and Roger come back, I think like that could happen in the penultimate episode or something like that. But now I don't know, because what the hell else are you doing with them for 8 episodes?
Right. Yeah,
you know?
that's why I thought that maybe
I don't know what to think about that. But then
encounter people before they go back to the Ridge, or, and I, as tragic as this would be, like maybe they don't plan on them going back to the Ridge. Maybe they plan on encountering each other on the East Coast somewhere, like not going back to North Carolina. I don't know. I'm just like trying to figure out, like you said, how they would make that work, because most of the Mac storyline for books 7 and 8,
unless they're inventing something for them, you know, inventing a season 8 story for them of dealing with getting from a reconnection to how they get from that into going to the Ridge, their story of their travel, you know, like we get that after the fact, that how they got from one to the other and their whole saga. Maybe they're going to tell that a little bit. I don't know, you know, to show the drama of, okay, well, now what? You know, how do we get back? I don't know, but that's just a thought. But I think my thought was, okay, they'll come back like maybe in ep 8 or something. And then it'll be or ep 9, one of them. And then it would be like the final episode would be like this reunion party of everybody, kind of like this being this feel good, you know, great moments, heartfelt moments, you know. I mean, it's not the time to have, you know, they're not going to want to end it with them and that's some kind of a thing. It's got to be some kind of feel good moments. Everybody's kind of happy, things are good, you know. And I think in that party, maybe you see William come in, you know, for some reason. I don't know what the reason would be, but for some reason, you know, he comes to the Ridge and ends up being that he, you know, Bree is there and they have a reconnection too. It could be that they do that.
It could be.
But I don't know. I don't know what to think about the next season. It's going to be,
I have no idea.
But Diana has laid a plan out. So whatever. But I don't know if they're following her plan. They said they liked her plan. They said that sounds good. But who knows, you know, if that's actually going to be what they do, because a lot of time that's before they talk to the writers and they start to work on it. And so by that point, they could turn around and say, you know, well, yeah, but then we thought about this and we could do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like it'd be interesting if.
They know though that like this is it. Like they don't have a lot of room for invention. They have to put a bow on it. Yeah. So maybe with that in mind, they'll stick to the plan, I guess.
Since you're short on time left, do you want to look at the board and see if there's anything we want to address that people said? Because we haven't done that much, you know, wanting to make sure we get through everything.
Linda put, what about the blackmail and Ian killing the blackmailer? I don't think
Hamish.
I don't think any of that's going to be in there, because I think that like the reason for Diana laying that groundwork is for potentially stuff we're going to see in book 10. And so I think it doesn't, if they cut it out, it's one of those things that doesn't really have any implication elsewhere, is kind of how I feel about it. Like they could easily just make Jamie and Claire and Ian going back to Scotland, just transferring General Fraser's body.
But they have to have a reason that the dogs left with Rachel. I think that they are going to do that, you know.
Maybe the captain of the ship didn't want a dog that looks like a wolf on his ship.
That's possible. Very possible. How about Hamish? Do you think we're going to get Hamish?
I mean, as cool
I kind
as
of feel like we are.
Yeah, personally. I mean, if it's just like a single episode, not really like he just pops in and like, oh, that's who that is. Like, I think it would be cool. But as far as like laying groundwork for a potential plot thing like the blackmailer does, I don't know.
No, I think he's just going to show, because I think it would be a great nod
to past
To-
seasons.
well, not just that, but also that we're seeing Dougal on the other side.
Oh yeah, that could
You
be true.
know,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like a connection. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
that's just my thought. You know,
Yeah.
they like to kind of show like little ties like that, threads between time
Right.
periods. They always look for ways to put a thread between time periods.
Yeah. And when you're looking at the letter, I think you're going to get a lot of voiceovers with the letters, and like that's going to be a good transition back and forth between the Max.
Oh,
and
that's
the
right,
Frasers
about
as
the
well.
Deadeye letter. We need to
Yeah.
get that too
Oh, yeah.
in next season. One of the things that Maria said last night is that she was a little bit perturbed that we never got the letter at the end of the
Yeah.
letter that the letter that Roger reads after the wedding or
Mhm.
whatever, around the wedding or their wedding.
Yeah, like that
at the
he
gathering
recites to Jamie. Yeah.
Yes. And I explained to her, I said, you know, well, that's because
You
they
got down the
changed it.
rabbit hole instead. Yeah.
Yeah, they did that episode where it became about Frank, and that was when they did all the reveal of Frank and new stuff, you know. I said, so, you know, that's probably why they didn't, because she seemed really bummed.
I would honestly, if we get, and I do think that
I know you like that, but I personally didn't like it because I thought it hurt.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
thought
I
it
understand.
impacted the
Yeah.
Bree and Jamie. It was part of the
yeah.
beginning of the slow decline of, you know, not really connecting Bree and Jamie, because it
Right.
starts before she ever meets him, that connection, and they never did that. So
I liked that it filled in some gaps, but also not having all of that stuff at Lollybrock just broke my heart, because that was one of my favorite parts of drums. So
me too. And I'm hitting that next when I restart the thing. That's like, we stopped just before, like, we're stopping drums, our drum study, right at Roger going back, and the next chapter is Bree at Lollybrock. And I said, I'm stopping here because I don't want all this other clutter in my head when I get to that, because I want to really enjoy it.
Yes,
exactly. And dive in and not have all of this other distraction when I'm going over that, because I missed it in the show and I want to talk about it now, you know, because so much is actually happening under the surface here. So
I think
I was bummed.
Like, I do think from a creative standpoint, it would be interesting if, you know, and I do think that they're bringing Tobias back. I do.
I absolutely do. I think that they would
be crazy.
I think they will bend over backwards and
Yes.
twist themselves into a pretzel to
Yep.
make a time. You know, they will work the crew around saying, okay, when are you available? We will work with your schedule to get you here, you know? And I think that we would, because it's only going to be maybe a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only going to be a scene. So it's not like they need him for a ton.
I think it would be, no, go ahead.
I was going to, if it's either just the scene of him bringing the thing, if they show that, or that scene plus the part in the office, or just the part in the office.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the part with Jerry, you know, from what I gathered from Diana, it's only one episode, the part with Jerry.
Gotcha.
So there's not a ton of time they devote to that storyline. Mm-hmm. But I do think that we're going to get Tobias in there, because I think they would be jumping on that, and they're holding it to their chest and not saying it when they're talking about Galus and Dougal and all these other people. You know, they're not mentioning him, and I think it's because they want to make a reveal. I don't think it's because we don't get him, you know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're holding it close to they're playing it close to the vest for sure. But I do think it would be cool if in the show universe type of thing, since we did get all of that stuff in down the rabbit hole, with like him almost telling her but then not telling her because, you know, XYZ. I think it would be cool if we saw a continuation of that, where that was maybe where he decided to write the letter or something like that, like because he says you'll understand someday, you know, in those scenes in Down the Rabbit Hole. So I don't know, it's a thought, but I would like to kind of like,
oh, I want to see Roger. I want to see Roger with Tobias. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that would be an awesome scene, you know, and I want to see Tobias before he was completely a maniac yet.
Blackjack.
Yeah, blackjack, that's what I meant. And just kind of because that's like when he first gets placed there, and so he's not really been tainted yet as much by the dredges of it, or whatever. And now he was still kind of going to be a wacko, but I don't think he's as much of a wacko. He just seems like he's not, that's not his first choice to be wacko.
He has like dark
He hasn't raped the kid,
but
the Alex McGregor or whatever his name is. He hasn't started that yet. I think that's starts him down that road, and then he continues it with Jamie. And I think that's kind of, he starts to need an outlet for his frustrations.
Sure.
So I'm curious to see how that's all played, because, Tobias would say, want to get into the mental place of before we found him. What was he like 4 years prior, to that or whatever. So when he first gets placed there, what kind of Blackjack Randall would he be at that point? I could see him really getting into that mind space to want to communicate that. So
yeah, I agree. He's like very much almost method in that way. Like he wants to get into that headspace, and that's part of the reason, sidestep, but that's the reason I'm excited for this show coming out in August, Manhunt, because
I can't wait for that show. And I know you are, because you're writing in that in that era a little bit.
Yeah. But he's like, once he was talking a little bit in this interview he did for Variety, that like he really gets into the mental space of like how unhinged Stanton became in that like 12-day period. And so like I am so here for that. Like he's so good at getting like in these dark mental spaces and really like breaking apart that psyche of those characters. So all right,
Carmen says that Tobias is going to Highlanders, and she thinks that's making her think that perhaps we're seeing him in season 7 because he's back in the circulation of showing up or whatever.
It could be, for sure could be. Yeah, and Veronica was pointing out that we're getting an older dog playing Rolo this season that's better at his job. So we're gonna get a feisty Rolo. I forget where I heard that, but yeah, they recast Rolo, and he understands the assignment better.
Plus, they need him to be older because he's going to be dying. Like in the next season. That's or what so he's like. Sad. He's already kind of like, when like you see, in this, I think in this time, you see, oh, you're getting old there, huh? And all that, and so not as springy as you used to be, huh? There, or whatever he says to Rollo. So it's kind of indicating a slow decline type of thing, So
Veronica mentions the conversation that's had about William's appearance being so different from his parentage. I think that was back when we were talking about all the stuff between General Fraser and William. But do you think we'll get any scene like that? Like them pointing? Yeah. I don't
remind me what you're talking about.
I don't really, I think it was more internal dialogue or something, but I do remember something about like how I don't know whether he saw similarities between himself and Fraser or what.
Oh, is that what you're saying? Like he looked at where
like, but he didn't see similarities.
Fraser noticed it. That was what it was. Yeah, Fraser looked at his hands and said, "You don't have hands like Lord John." And that's when he has to explain that he's his adopted father,
Yeah.
And then you see Fraser kind of like looking at him and looking at, because the last time he really saw Jamie was when Jamie was young, know?
Yeah.
And so he kind of looks familiar. You get a sense that Fraser thinks he looks familiar, but can't place it,
Yeah.
So
yeah, so I think she made that comment when we were talking about 707 and like the bonding moments that potentially William and Fraser will have in those 707 and 708. Yeah, that could be a good one. Like kind of just making a comment like other people notice it too. It's not just like us who are in the know. Like, that could be something interesting to point out.
I think though, just in what we've said, that's a lot of story.
Oh, it is
a lot of story for 8 episodes. I mean, that it really could have been a season easily by itself.
Sure.
And so it's like a regular season, like a 12-ep season. I'm saying not a 16-ep, but it could easily be that.
Kat has made so many like comments about, oh, well, this is the first season since season 1, like as far as like scope, and I was like, I'm sorry. Season 1 didn't have near the amount of this shit in it.
I don't even know
There's
why.
no
I
way.
didn't understand that comment at all.
I
'Cause
mean,
I didn't
yeah,
think
it's
that
16 episodes, but it's not near the amount of content. Like season 1 is going to feel slow compared to
much
season
slower,
7.
much
Yeah.
slow. I mean, season 1 felt slow. Like
Yeah, it did.
I liked it,
Very
because I liked
developmental.
the detail and all the
Mhm.
really submerging, but they really took their time. I mean, you would not see 4 episodes before they go out for rent or
Oh,
whatever. And
no.
now in the way that
Right.
they pace episodes now,
Yes.
it should be a Castle Leac one episode, it should be like they'd have
Off
that,
on-
the Castle
yep.
Leac, and then off. It would be like bing, bing, bing. They would be
Yeah.
spending all the time at her walking around the castle and
All the
Rupert and Angus
voiceovers.
following her and all of the little antics and having tag with the kids. And I mean, they would not be doing all that now.
No. So that's what, when she said that, I was like, I don't understand what you're trying to say, but I don't agree at all with
No.
what you're getting at. Like,
I think I
like
think she means the
2
length of the season. Maybe that's
maybe.
what she means.
But like when you talk about the scope of a season, you're talking about the amount of stuff that it covers.
To me, that would
I
be
think
maybe
of.
3 because it covers
Yeah.
so much time and all the
Exactly. Yeah.
different scenes of everything it covered, and we get the
Yeah.
the hurricane and the
Yeah.
travel. I mean, that had a scope.
That
you know what I
had
mean?
scope. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think season 7 and season 3 probably would be, or season 2. Season 2 did cover a lot as far
Yeah.
as like all the espionage, and then you go into the
Go into the
Jacobite
battle.
Rising.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, not season 1. Like the only similarities that I think season 1 and season 7 have are that they're both 16 episodes with a break in the middle. That's
Yes.
literally it.
That's it. Yeah. That is it.
So,
And you notice else another little thing you're seeing, just as book readers, we can see that them plotting it with the trailer and so forth, with the comments, you always promised you'd come back to me and all these things. You can see they're setting that thematic element up for that big moment when she thinks Jamie is dead and he's not coming back to her.
Yep.
And then he does, when she already assumed he wasn't. And he was like, I could see them, that you can see they're putting that, they're putting a lot of like cushioning in for that blow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or right up front with the trailer as a key thematic piece. So yeah, you can see what they're doing.
I know we said we weren't going to talk about the back half of season 7, but I'm
I know
curious.
we're doing it now.
We always do stuff we say we're not going to do.
I just wanted to tell you about the thing with the bullet with the Denzel Washington thing, because I thought that was funny. I wanted to tell you about the behind the scenes story.
Yeah. I'm part of me thinks that because in the book, like all along, while we're seeing Claire and John struggle with their grief, we know Jamie's alive. Do you think in the show we're not going to know that Jamie's alive?
I hope not. I hope we don't know.
The fact that we knew.
I wish we didn't know, because I think it affected the way people read. Huh?
I think it lost the punch, honestly. Like
I think the fact that we know makes it where everything that Claire does is viewed with a skew.
Cheating.
People it makes it where people get so pissed off about it, and I think, and one of the things Diana says is that the reason you feel like that is because I allowed you to know. I created a situation that you're the god in the sky that knows the whole story, and you're watching this whole thing play out where the people don't know the story, and so she's like, that's the technique I took on that, but that also makes it where you then have the knowledge that this isn't actually what they think isn't true, and so you're viewing it through that lens. But I think it would be better for the viewers if they don't know what the hell happened, like, okay, he went down, that was, and I hope we don't see that the ship left, like, I hope they don't let us see any of that, just that, oh, we got booked on the Euterpe tomorrow, blah, blah, blah,
then pick up
and
with
just skip over, and, to that story. And then maybe at the very end show, like him coming back and say, like, after we see them have a little zingy zing, maybe I would do a little peek in to say, do you believe the ship left without us or whatever? Then we'll know, but while it's happening, I don't want to know. You know what I mean? I know, but you know what I mean?
I feel like it would be a perfect cliffhanger-ish thing to have him like show, we think he's dead. We go through like the Mischianza and all of that stuff. And then like see him walking up to Chestnut Street. and then it cuts, and then we
Okay,
deal with all
yeah,
the
that
other
would be good
stuff in the
too.
next
That would be
episode.
good too. Yeah.
But who knows?
Or the print shop, him knock
Yeah.
on the print shop door and say, and then we'll like freak out and start
What?
screaming. The kids start screaming and him say, what the hell's going on? And they're like, you're supposed to be dead, and this happened. And
Yeah.
him be like, oh no, I'm here. That
No,
went
I'm
down, and
quite
explain
alive.
what happened. Yeah.
The what is it? The what something of my death has been greatly the accounts
Yeah,
of
the
my
news
death
of
have
my-
been greatly exaggerated.
I hope that they do that, because I mean I really do think we're going to see a little more of Cesar and Lauren in the second half,
Yeah.
So I mean I don't think we're seeing them at all in the first half.
Yeah.
I
mean, and I would like to see them, but also they're covering so much stuff in the 1st half that like if they're not there, I don't really think we're going to notice they're gone, to be honest. Like, so I think we will see them definitely in the second half. I would like to see kind of like just a check-in, hey, how you doing in the first half? But if we don't, like I said, I don't feel like it's going to feel like it's lacking anything. So
yeah, and then I can't wait to see too the whole bit with Arch and William, killing Arch and saying, you have a habit of attracting men with axes,
yeah.
What is it with you always with the men with the axes?
I'm so excited to see William.
Yes.
Period. Like exclamation point. I'm so excited to see William.
I think he's going to be good, and I think we're really going to start to love him when we get to the Dismal episode. I think before that, we're just going to see Stuffy, a little bit more, being proper officer guy,
Yeah.
But I think when he's like hurting and he's kind of pouring his soul a little bit and asking Ian about a death song and what did they say? Yeah. I love to see the part where he says, I hope they include it, where he says, I am William Henry Clarence George Ransom. And then he's like, no, that's not it. I am William James. And then he says, no, I am William, and he kind of does it. It's kind of like a foreshadowing of the way that she structures the back half where she says, where he just comes down that I am William and that's all I pretty much know about myself.
That. Yeah.
It kind of is like a little foreshadowing of that.
You see like a complete breakdown of who William thinks he is versus who he actually is over the course of this book. And like, I'm praying to God that they do justice to that story, because I think that's where we see that little crinkling a little bit of him and his more vulnerable states.
And, that's where you're going to see where I think people are going to start to care about him more there. You know what I mean? Because it's going to take a bit for people to like know him and invest in him and care, especially because they didn't like him as a kid. Even in the show, people didn't like him much as a kid, like a middle kid, the one that came to the Ridge. They all thought he was snotty. Tom hated him. I hate that kid.
Yeah. I mean, and
what a brat. Like, what a snobby brat, And I'm like, stop.
He is like, he's privileged. Like that's the life he grew up in. And so like, that's who he is. But that's the point, and it's something that I'll probably end up stressing over and over and over again in my analysis. You're going to get
flack a little bit probably in the beginning from people,
because I mean, you already get flack from people that blame him for how he was conceived and how he came into this world, but you know what, like, that's not his fault.
Exactly.
Like, he is who he is, and he's a
you think
good
he wanted
guy.
That you don't think he would have wanted that? No.
Right.
It's not his fault who his parent, what happened and all this drama and everything.
I mean, like, seriously, imagine if he legitimately learned the truth about that. Like, legit learned the truth about all the blackmail and all the shit that happened.
I really want him to learn that Jamie shot, that he was going to be killed. And Jamie saved his life by shooting the guy he always thought was his father, and to save him from being thrown out the window. Well, not in the show, he wasn't being thrown out the window, but
from being stabbed.
I think that like he still doesn't know that, and even in our current book system, like that's still not known. So I'm hoping on this little journey to rescue John thing that it comes out somehow. Yeah.
Well, we already know that stuff is coming out that Jamie never in a million years thought his son would know about him, based on some of the daily lines that are have been released. So yeah, I just cannot wait for the resolution of that story. And like, I hope we get a nice little satisfying bow on the top of it, however she chooses to end it.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All righty, Chickie.
Yep. You got to get on call. Look at us. Look at us getting done on time.
I'm so
even
proud
with
of
our
us.
tech issues to start with.
Heck,
we did it.
Tech issues.
Although you gave us a lot of time, more than you normally do, so I'm not really that surprised.
I'm like, I've learned, just give you 4 hours. Give it 4 hours, and if we get done early, we get done early.
Hey, it wasn't 4 hours because we had tech issues.
Yes, I
came on, it was like 1:30. Now it's like not even 4:30 yet. So
we're good.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm improving.
We got off on less tangents today than we normally do. All righty, guys. Well, this has been our season 7 countdown. We have 20 days left until
can I make a little 411 announcement?
Sure.
I just want to let everybody know things I have coming up, in case you want to pop over to Queen Bee's Outlandish Hive. If you're not already a member, I'd love to have you. I am going to do a show on Sunday after the premiere. The premiere's like Thursday and Friday are the Josh and premiere thing. And Sunday, I'm going to do a show about the premiere and about the show with Josh. But what I'm going to do is not talk spoilers in there. But at like the last 15-20 minutes, I'm going to wave my B, which means my B's back there now. But I wave my B, and that means if you want to leave now, if you don't want to hear anything about the actual show, what happens, then you can go, because a couple people said they did want to know things. They wanted to be able to ask questions and get specific answers. So I'll wave the B, and if you want to ask me after I wave it, people leave that don't want to hear it. Then if you want to ask me something, I will answer your question. I'm not going to volunteer things, but if you ask me something, I will answer your question. So that's how I'm going to put it, and so that's how I'm going to do it. And then what I'm going to do after that is, having a party. We're having a party. So we're having a kickoff to season 7 party at Queen Bee's Outlandish Hive. From on the 15th, we're counting down to midnight when they open it up on midnight. So on the 15th, between 8:30 and 11:30, and then 11:30, letting you go, and then everybody can kind of get situated for that in that half hour for the premiere starting at midnight. So, and also if you're an Audible fan, this Wednesday coming up, I'm interviewing Tavia Gilbert for a live, who is a really rock star Audible woman, and she's going to talk all about the industry and how it works and stuff. I mean, it's not an Outlander thing, but it's something that we're interested in if you're a book person that likes Audible books. So if you'd like to go to that, that's coming up this Wednesday night. So those are some things I have on the agenda over at Queen Bee's Outlandish Hive. Love to have you.
Fun stuff. Lots of cool stuff going on for you.
Yeah. And then during the season, we do adaptation chats there. We do a review of the episode, but it's in terms of how well they adapted the story in that episode that they covered, and how we felt about it. Do we feel they did a good job reflecting the spirit? We talk about that kind of aspects of it. And I'll probably be doing those on Wednesday nights, I think, is when I'm doing those. So if I run into an issue or something, my mom has another problem or something like that, then I have Thursday to kind of make up before the new episode starts. So that's my plan. So that's what I'm doing in season. So, and we're putting a hold on the drama study until after the mid-season break, and then we're coming back to it.
Cool. For those of you that may be new, I have a Patreon now, and my knee-jerk reactions for the episodes as they air will be moved to that this upcoming season. I did them here in TSF of Sassenachs for season 6. But I'm moving them to Patreon, and those will be posted on the Friday evenings after the episode airs at midnight. That's my uncensored opinion, and sometimes they are very harsh. So I will give you the heads up now.
I plan on doing that as well on my Patreon too. So, give it a hot take type of thing.
Yeah.
Before I do this analytical thing, so.
Yeah. And then my analytical stuff will be put together as podcasts after the first half of season 7 airs. So season 7 will go off. And then the next week I start my deep dive hour-long podcasts on the nitty-gritty of the episodes, so that will fill our time during the mini Droughtlander. And then hopefully right about the time that I'm done going through those, we'll have another month or so until season 7 part B airs. So
your best bet is to be members of both pages and be clued in on the events for both pages and make sure you don't miss anything between Chelsea and myself.
Because we'll keep you busy.
We'll keep you busy, and we'll probably do in the mid. I'm imagining. I'm speaking for Chelsea. Maybe I'll do it on my page, but I'm imagining in the mid-season part, we'll kind of do a get-together show like this and say, "Okay, now we know what they did. What do we think is coming?" And that type of a thing. So maybe we'll do something like that too in between.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
All righty, guys.
I think we kicked this to the curb, right?
I think we did too.
Yes.
Kicking butt and taking names.
That's right.
That's us. All righty, guys. Well, I gotta get to work. So bye, guys.
Much love, everyone. Bye.
Bye.